like to invite all legislators to the chambers. We will begin our meeting. All right, I'm going to call the meeting of the legislature to order. I would ask everyone to please rise. Legislator Ford will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, Legislator Ford. Mike, could you please call the roll?
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Roll call. Deputy Presiding Officer Howard Coppell. Alternate Deputy Presiding Officer Denise Ford. Legislator Sheila Bino. Legislator Carrier Salage. Okay. Legislator Deborah Muley. Legislator C. William Gaylor III.
Present.
Thank you. Legislator John Giuffre.
Here.
Legislator Mazi Philippe.
Here.
Legislator Delia DeRiggi Witten. Thank you. Legislator James Kennedy. Here. Legislator Thomas McKevitt.
Here.
Legislator Laura Schaefer. Here. Legislator John Ferretti. He's absent. Legislator Arnold Drucker. Legislator Rose Marie Walker. Here. Legislator Joshua Lafazan. Thank you. Legislator Stephen Rhodes. Present. Minority Leader Kavan Abrahams. And Presiding Officer Richard Nicolello.
Here.
We have a quorum, sir.
Thank you very much. All right, so this is the meeting of the legislature. Before we get to the business portion of the meeting, we have several points on our agenda. First, as every month, we have presentations to the top cops. For the month of December, we have presentations from the Nassau County PBA and DAI, followed by points of personal privilege. There'll be some recognition of some sports teams, etc., who are here. A presentation by Brian Sullivan from the Corrections Officers Benevolent Association, and then public comment. If you intend to make any public comments, please complete a slip, which we have over here at this table, and submit the comment to the clerk's office here, and then we will call up you to make your comment during that portion of our meeting. So again, let's start things off with the top cops, and I'd like to invite up Kevin Mullock, First Vice President of the Nassau PBA.
Good afternoon. First off, I want to thank the legislature for giving me the opportunity to speak and honor the top cops. It's a very good arrest that I'm about to read. So for November 2022, on August 29th of 2022, and it's a Monday, we'll get back to that in a minute, at approximately 5:30 hours, 3 male subjects entered a BP gas station on Plandome Road in Manhasset in the 6th Precinct. The subjects approached the gas attendant wearing masks. The subjects punched the gas attendant while displaying a small black handgun while shouting, "Where's the dollars? Where's the dollars?" One of the subjects rushed the cash registers and removed over $1,000. While exiting the gas station, the subject stole the complainant's car keys, smashed and stole his cell phone, and fled the location in a Honda Civic that was reported stolen out of New York City. 6th Precinct Police Officer Chris Liu heard the radio call for a robbery. He approached the location, and he did observe 3 male subjects wearing masks in a Honda Civic. Officer Liu activated his lights, and the subject stopped the vehicle in the middle of the service road. The driver and rear passenger exited the vehicle and fled on foot towards Searingtown in the 3rd Precinct. Officer Liu went over the radio to give notification that subjects were now on foot. Officer Liu apprehended the subject in the front passenger seat. 6th Precinct Police Officer William Gottfried and 3rd Precinct Police Officer Chris McGraw began to canvass the area after hearing Officer Liu's notification. Officer Gottfried and McGraw spoke to an Uber driver who stated he saw 2 male subjects. Officer Gottfried drove around the block to set up a perimeter and saw 1 male subject. When the subject spotted Police Officer Gottfried, he ran back towards Police Officer McGraw. Officer McGraw heard Officer Gottfried shout that the subject was headed towards him and pursue the subject on foot while shouting verbal commands to stop. The subject refused to comply. The subject then jumped the fence into a wooded area that leads to the Northern State Parkway, or Officer McGraw was in the wooded area that leads to Northern State Parkway, into a wooded area, and Officer McGraw was able to apprehend the subject and place him under arrest. The subject positively identified and was transported to the robbery squad. While these subjects were being processed, it was determined that one of the subjects had over 80 prior arrests. If not for the quick response, quick actions, and dedication and bravery, these officers would have continued their robbery spree. The Nassau County PBA is proud to announce police officers Chris Liu, Chris McGraw, and William Gottfried as legislative top cops of November 22. I just want to add one thing. So, as I said in the beginning, it was about 5:30 in the morning on a Monday, and things like these sometimes become very messy, especially when you're pursuing people on a parkway. Thank you. Oh, one last thing. Happy Thanksgiving.
I'm going to correct Kevin. We do not pursue. Bad word, Kev. All right, first of all, I want to thank you all for giving us the opportunity to recognize our officers here. Again, it's not uncommon these days to see people wearing a mask driving a car. But the great work done by our cops, but let's not forget our civilians. Those who work in our communications bureau, who receive that 911 call, who give out the description in a calm, steady fashion every time to make sure our cops get it. As it started out and then into 2-foot pursuits that they were able to catch both of these people, it always gets a little difficult at times, and our cops did an outstanding job. That is because of the great training that they get by the men and women of the Police Academy. So, again, thank you for this opportunity, and as Kevin said, happy Thanksgiving.
How you doing, Ledge? I just want to say I want to thank you guys for the honor. I want to thank the PBA and Commissioner Ryder and my fellow co-workers. Thank you so much, and happy Thanksgiving. Officer Chris Liu.
Thank you. Thank you, officers. And on behalf of the legislature and the grateful Nassau County, I want to thank all of you for your fine work. I mean, when I was reading this the other day, it unfolds like a television show. And you know, when 2 of the suspects left and fled on foot, I was saying to myself, there's no way they're going to catch them. But so the fact that you were able to apprehend all 3 through coordination, stamina, persistence, skill is truly extraordinary. It reflects well on your entire department. The one thing that does scream off this page is this suspect had 80 prior arrests. I mean, the average resident has to say to themselves, how is it possible that someone with 80 prior arrests is out on the streets? It's just, you know, system. Some elements of our system have to be changed. I mean, if there's 80 prior arrests, you're probably talking about hundreds of victims. It's astonishing. But again, congratulations and well done, guys. Thanks. Anything else? Okay, we're going to bring you up in a moment to have a presentation, but we'll have to ask the DAI to come up first. And I would like to invite...
I'll fix the mic for the next speaker.
I'd like to invite up Jeff Gross, the president of the Detectives Association, Inc.
Okay, first I'd like to thank the Ledge, the presiding officer, Richard Nicolello, Minority Leader Kevon Abrams, and the full legislative body for having us here today. We're here to honor the detectives from the 7th Squad, Detective Jessica Brennan, Jason Risky, and Detective Sergeant Ronald Moore. This incident occurred on August the 28th, a little after 9 o'clock at Birch Elementary School in Merrick. So just to paint a picture, you have a child, 14 years old, riding his bike. A male unprovokingly comes out of nowhere, knocks him off the bike and beats him. The 14-year-old was knocked into a coma. Well, actually, I'm sorry, he was knocked unconscious. He was transported to Cohen's hospital, where he was unconscious for 2 weeks. That's all the detectives knew when they got this case. It was their tenacity, their dedication. They're going around doing old-fashioned police work, ringing doorbells, looking for witnesses to find out that this was a ding-dong ditch situation where they rang this person's doorbell. The father and son came out. They ran to the school, and they saw an innocent kid riding his bike, and they assumed that was the kid who did it. And they knocked him off his bike, and they beat him until he was unconscious. It was because these officers, these detectives, working for 3 days tirelessly, putting it all together, asking for ring doorbells and other videos, were able to get a video, get a partial description, eventually find the suspect, bring him in, question him, and then get statements that led to the arrest. I was just told the 14-year-old just returned back to school recently. But that's the dedication and the professionalism of the Nassau County detectives. And again, I appreciate your time and opportunity, and I wish you guys all happy Thanksgiving.
It takes a special person to become a detective, and someone that's willing to take on the day-to-day work, the day-to-day grind, and what goes into it. But they are invested in their victims. They are invested to make sure that they get closure and they give their victims a voice. They are families too, as you see here. She brought her young daughter with her here today. So we thank you for what you've done to increase our detectives to the number we have. We are still working to make it better and make it more enhanced, that they want to come on to the Detective Division. But also, Detective Sergeant Moore leads this group. It's challenging to be a supervisor in those roles, but they do a great job. So again, we thank you for giving this opportunity to recognize them. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for acknowledging our casework and the opportunity. Happy Thanksgiving.
Legislator Rhodes.
In the time that I've had the opportunity to be a county legislator, I think one of the greatest things that we've done as a legislature is have this top cops brief moment at the start of every meeting to be able to recognize some of the incredible police work that happens every single day as you're out there protecting our residents. And a lot of times that goes unnoticed. This is a perfect example of that. You using your ingenuity, your diligence in protecting the rights of the victim, which seems to have been forgotten in this entire process when dealing with what you've been dealing with coming out of Albany recently. We still have the dedicated men and women of the Nassau County Police Department who are out there every single day fighting for victims, fighting to keep our communities safe. And I want to congratulate all three of you on behalf of all of our legislators for the incredible work that you did in this case. I mean, this is one of the instances where we did hear about this, obviously, on the news because of the age of the victim. But it's wonderful to see that that chasing down leads, going for the Ring doorbell video cameras, canvassing the neighborhood looking for witnesses, that this was old-fashioned police, old-fashioned detective work that helped you identify the perpetrator in this case, help you bring them to justice, but just as importantly, help keep our community safe and help get justice for the victim of this crime. And that's what you do every single day in spite of the challenges that Albany continues to throw up against you. I want to thank you for your dedication, Detective Brennan, Detective, is it Risky, and Detective Sergeant Moore. thank you for being out there, and I know that you represent 2,500 of our law enforcement officers that are here in Nassau County who are out there doing the same thing every day to help keep us safe. So God bless each and every one of you, and thank you for being there.
Okay, thank you. Come on up. Oh, yep.
Fine work. Fine work, really, proud of you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, come on up, Jeff. Thanks.
proud of your mommy, yeah. Have a good Thanksgiving, Commissioner.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah. Wait, Robin, let me get out of the way.
All right. The next item is a point of personal privilege. We have legislators Muley, Abrahams, and Rhodes. And Drucker here. You're next.
Okay. All right, presiding officer, may I start? Okay. I'd like to ask the members of the Freeport Fire Department, the Baldwin Fire Department, and Sani 2 to come up, please. Right over there. We got a big crowd. Come on up. And we especially need Chief Anthony Satira, and we especially need Lieutenant Brown. All right. Would Lieutenant Brown and Chief Satira please come up to the front? They really hate being here. They really do. All right. All right. I usually like to speak from the heart, but there's a lot of details in this, and so I'm going to read something that's prepared because I don't want to miss anything. On Friday, November 4th, at approximately 8:46 a.m., Nassau County 911 and Fire Communications received numerous calls for a house fire at 30 East Raymond Avenue in Roosevelt. The Freeport Fire Department was alerted for an engine to respond on the second alarm, bringing Engine 216 and 3rd Assistant Chief Anthony Satira to the scene. Simultaneously to Chief Satira arriving on the scene, Lieutenant Joe Brown from Baldwin Truck 1 was on his way to his sanitation route in Roosevelt while working as a supervisor for the Town of Hempstead Sanitation District Number 2. Realizing the fire is on his route, he responded to the scene in his sanitation vehicle. On arrival, Chief Satira donned his personal protective equipment and checked with the incident commander, who stated that there was an occupant trapped still inside. Observing heavy fire from the front of the dwelling, the chief headed to the side of the house where he met multiple NCPD officers who were gathered. They confirmed there was a woman trapped in the corner room after hearing her scream for help. Chief Satira observed dense black smoke coming from the windows where the occupant was trapped. That's bad. Dense black smoke, yeah, that's really bad. Both the front and side door presented a large volume of fire, making entry impossible. With no engines or ladders on scene yet, Chief Satira knew that time was of the essence and would need to act fast. He called to the NCPD officers to find a ladder, and they returned with a 4-foot A-frame ladder. That was just what was there. Satira placed the ladder against the side of the house below the rear window. Despite having the ladder, he was still not high enough to easily make entry through the window. With his facepiece donned, he grabbed the windowsill and pulled himself into the window. By now, Lieutenant Brown from Baldwin arrived on scene to observe Chief Satira make entry through a window. Seeing that Satira was in a precarious position, he immediately went over to assist him. Unable to reach the floor, Satira came out of the window. He directed the NCPD officers to find a garden hose so that water could be used to cool the window while he attempted to make entry again. With Brown there to assist him, he re-entered the window through the high heat and dense smoke. While Brown held his legs, Satira again searched but was still unable to reach the floor. With conditions worsening, Satira backed out to regroup. Needing to find a better means of access into the house, NCPD officers, along with Chief Satira and Lieutenant Brown, attempted to breach the exterior wall of the room. Using a Halligan tool, Satira began striking the side of the house, while an NCPD officer used a tactical entry tool to do the same. A hole was breached, but obstructed by a stud in the wall. Lieutenant Brown took over the breaching operation using the tactical entry tool to clear the stud to make the hole bigger. Reaching in, he grabbed the occupant's leg, and with Satira's assistance, they pulled the victim toward the hole in the wall. With the assistance of the NCPD officers and police medics, they pulled the victim through the hole and onto a stretcher. With the fire victim now in the care of EMS, Satira again donned his face piece to search for additional victims in the room. With the room now involved in a fire, the chief entered through the breached wall to conduct a search without the protection of a hand line. Lieutenant Brown remained at the opening to help Satira maintain his orientation and to ensure his egress upon completing the search. The search was negative except for the victim they had already removed. I think it's important to note the incredible bravery that is required to do this, and these are volunteers. And Lieutenant Brown wasn't even there as a firefighter. He certainly had the training. He is a firefighter, but he was there in the capacity of other jobs. And I think it's also important to note the cooperation of all of the agencies working together. So you have the fire departments, you have SANI 2, you have the police that were mentioned numerous times in this, and you know, so many people who were working to help protect life. And having gone through a fire myself, I know it's a debt we can never repay, what you do. So I just want to say thank you, and I will turn it over to, you know, either Legislator Rhodes or Legislator Abrahams.
Yeah, I wanted to join my colleagues in thanking you for your bravery and for your dedication. Being a volunteer firefighter myself for 30 years, you know, I know how much training, how much dedication goes into making yourself ready just for that moment. But you never truly know until that moment comes whether you're going to do the right thing at the right time. And your tremendous heroism in effectuating this rescue, risking your own lives, as our volunteers do every single day, for the lives, to protect the lives of perfect strangers, you know, really is a beautiful expression of love and the passion that you have for serving our community. And I want to thank you for your dedication. I want to thank you for your passion, and I want to thank you for being a fine example for those of us in the fire service to emulate ourselves after, you know, in trying to do our jobs. So congratulations, and congratulations also to another volunteer firefighter who is here today, and that's our Freeport Mayor, Robert Kennedy, as well. So thank you.
I just want to join in thanking you for your service and your determination, and congratulate and thank, not congratulate, but thank Legislator Muley as well as Legislator Rhodes in your recognition as well. It's not easy what you do, and you do it on a voluntary basis, and I think Legislator Muley said it best. It's in regards to protecting lives and making sure that you can save as many lives as possible. I think your achievement and what you do, it definitely goes unrecognized. I think many in our community just expect you to be there when you're supposed to be there, and it's not easy. It's a sacrifice from your families, sacrifice from your loved ones, and at the same time you're risking your life in that process as well. So it does not go unnoticed, and I just want to speak on behalf of the residents of District 1, especially since where this fire occurred. We are truly in debt to your service, as well as to your commitment to our community. So thank you again.
I'd like to say that in addition to, you see everyone who's here, Chief Satira's brother and father are here, who are also firefighters in the Freeport Fire Department. We also have Mayor Kennedy, who's here. Can you wave? Yep, there you are. And we have SANI 2 Commissioner Carl Dehaney. There you go. And we have Baldwin Fire Commissioners Keith Eccles and Frank Esposito. And we have the Executive Director of the Freeport Fire Department, Ray McGuire. I hope I haven't missed, oh, Jerry Brown, I see you here. Have I missed anybody else who I should be saying hello to? Oh, Doug, sorry. Doug Whedon's here also. But anyway, I promised them that they did not have to say anything, and I'm going to hold to that promise, right. But if we could ask Mayor Kennedy to say a few words, please.
Good morning, everybody, and I want to thank the legislature for recognizing these heroes that are here today. Village of Freeport greatly appreciates it. On behalf of the Village of Freeport trustees, myself, the residents in Nassau County, we just want to say thank you so much and congratulate these firefighters for taking the chance to risk their own lives to save somebody else. Chief Satira is again joined by his brother and his father, who are both ex-chiefs in the Village of Freeport, and I want to thank them for the services. God bless the volunteer firefighters. They do a great job, and we, as residents and employees of the village, greatly appreciate it. Let's give the big heroes a big hand, please, if you don't mind. They've done a tremendous job. And thank you for our legislators for doing this today, Deb, and all our legislators. Thank you so much. Ray, you have something to say?
Sure. I too want to thank the legislature. You know, we don't consider you folks public officials. We consider you folks friends in government. And the support that you show us is phenomenal. It is not unnoticed by the fire service in Nassau County. What these two guys did, along with the two BSO officers from Nassau County PD, was a phenomenal job. The outcome was not what we would have wanted, in that she did succumb to her injuries 3 days later. However, that is testimony to the heroism that was performed that day, based on the conditions that they faced in that situation. So we thank you for recognizing them. We also want to mention the Brown family also has a story, the history in the Baldwin Fire Department. So as you folks know from going and being involved with us, the fire service is a big family. It's an extended family, huge family, and the dedication, commitment, and pride that these folks have is just beyond reproach. So thank you very much for recognizing that. We appreciate that.
Commissioner Dehaney, I believe, would like to say a few words as well.
Good afternoon. I'm Carl Dehaney, Commissioner Carl Dehaney, Chairman of the Board of Commissioners for Sandy 2. My colleagues are here, Jerry Brown, Doug Weidman, Commissioner Leroy Roberts. We certainly want to commend all of our heroes who did a fantastic job, who were there, and it's timely, because who's to say if they weren't there, what might have happened. I want to commend Joe for just doing what he does. He was on his sanitation route. Had he not been there, who's to say what might have happened? So we certainly just want to commend him for just doing his job. And we want to commend all those volunteer firefighters for just being in place and just being there for us and being there for the residents of Roosevelt. And we are certainly thankful. So I just want to just thank you for this time. Happy Thanksgiving to you. And again, thank you to Freeport and Baldwin Fire Department and just all who were involved in doing this tremendous, tremendous effort. Thank you.
If all of you could join us in the back so we can take a couple pictures. Thank you.
I'd like to recognize Legislator Arnold Drucker for the presentation.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. I would like to congratulate the Plainview Old Bethpage JFK boys soccer team and their coach Christine Ho on winning the Nassau Class AA championship game on November 2nd at the Mitchell Field Athletic Complex. While it was a long game that went into double overtime, POB JFK prevailed with 9:46 left when two sophomores, Weber Nakagawa Durarte and Ryan Misidi, delivered the deciding goal for POB JFK. Weber Nakagawa Durarte headed the ball in off a feed from Ryan Misidi to give POB JFK a 1-0 lead over Oceanside. Sorry, Bill. This was the first Nassau Class AA championship game that POB JFK has won since 1985. Before the game, the team's coach, Christine Ho, had a meeting with the team. She told the players that it took her 23 years to get to the Nassau Class AA championship game and for them to make it count. It took hard work, determination, and perseverance, and it all paid off in the end. Coach Ho knew all along that her team had what it took to prevail, and with her encouragement and confidence, along with the support of their family, friends, and community, they indeed did prevail. The Nassau County Championship gives me a great deal of personal pride, not just because Plainview is my lifelong hometown, but because, although many of you may have a hard time believing this, but I played on the POB soccer team for many years. And I appreciate how difficult and elusive a Nassau County Championship was and is. We made the playoffs once in my career, and that was a monumental accomplishment in the history of Plainview soccer. So we are so proud of you and all the hard work and determination it took to get there. And on behalf of the Nassau County Legislature, we would like to present you with a citation and recognition of your success. I already gave you the citations. Coach Ho, would you, or any of your players, like to say a few words? All of the players can come up.
Yeah, no problem. Good boys, come on. My name is Joe Brake. I'm the athletic director for Plainview Old Bethpage. I want to thank everybody here, especially Mr. Drucker, for inviting us to this ceremony, the legislator today. It's more than we could have ever imagined, more than we could have ever dreamed. The boys walking in here, their eyes were wide, and the experience that they've had just meeting some of the elected officials has just been simply outstanding. You know, you go into every season hoping that you have the right coach, the right mix of kids, and we might be able to create something special. And this team absolutely is an epitome of that. We have the right coach, and we have a great bunch of kids here that did an outstanding job on the field. But as the athletic director, it's just not that what I'm proud of. It's what they do in the classroom as well. We just did their grades finalized today. I did their GPAs. As a team, their team GPA is 96, and yeah. So, you know, we talk a lot in Plainview, at the Plainview Old Bethpage in the athletic department, that we want to have kids that play with character in class, but we also want them to be great student athletes. And this team this year is truly an embodiment of that. They performed unbelievably on the field, something that we haven't seen in many years in Plainview, and then they did a great job in the classroom as well. So, with that being said, I just want to say once again, thank you for everything, and happy Thanksgiving. Coach Ho?
Hi, I'm Christine Ho, the coach of the team. First of all, thank you all for having us. This is such a special day for these young men. We were lucky enough this morning to travel all the elementary schools and be celebrated, so I'm so happy for these guys. A special thank you to Legislator Drucker for the kind words and for setting this all up and allowing these young men to be celebrated, because this is what it's all about. So thank you very much. I'd like to have my captain, Asher Block, just say a few words.
I'd just like to say on behalf of all of us, thank you for having us come here today and be recognized. Thank you to Coach and also Coach Cal, he's not here with us today, but they helped us get here, and to Mr. Braco as well. We just really appreciate the opportunity to come down here and be recognized, so thank you very much.
Thank you so much again. We really appreciate it, and we hope everyone has a happy Thanksgiving.
I'd just like to add, Legislator Schaefer and myself, we represent a very small piece of Plainview Old Bethpage, but to us, you're our kids also, and I just want to congratulate you all. I am a sports mom and now a sports grandma, so my oldest is just now a freshman in high school. He actually was the starting attackman on our varsity lacrosse team last year that just so happened to beat the Hawks. Oh, sorry, but so proud of him and watching him grow. But you know, I'm out there on the sports fields all the time, and I have to tell all of you that, and for your families, that not only do you a great job on the field and certainly in the classroom, but when I'm out and about in our communities, and you know, I'm in the stores or wherever, and I see any of you with a Plainview, you know, jacket on, or soccer or whatever sport it is, I could tell you that you have the finest young men and women, and they represent you and your families so amazingly. And you know, that comes from all of you teaching them not just about your sport, but life lessons too, and you can certainly be very proud of them, not just on the field and in the classroom, but outside as well. So I just want to thank you and congratulate you all, and a happy Thanksgiving, and I hope to see you in basketball or lacrosse or baseball or wherever else you're playing. So take care.
I too want to say thank you, and even though you did beat Oceanside, which is a district that I represent, but well done, and it also is, for you, Coach Chow, must be something very rewarding knowing that you were able to bring this team to such great success. And Arnie, I'm not surprised that you played soccer. I just want to put that on the record because I think it's important. But I do have to ask, there must be significance with your hair, because it is very, you know, we all are trying to like pretend that it's, but it just is. I wish I was natural blonde like them. And I would love to hear why.
Yeah, I'm not sure when it started, but tradition was once they made the team, so the day after tryouts, they kind of all go to their salon barber as a team, and they all dye their hair blonde. This year, we made a deal with them. Unfortunately, we missed the playoffs the last 2 seasons. So the deal was if they made the playoffs, I would do it. So I had to do it. And then our assistant coach made the deal if they made it to the finals, he would do it, and he did do it as well. And then they socked us all, and obviously they're champions. Unfortunately, Mr. Braco fell a little short. He had promised if we actually won the championship, he would do it. Unfortunately, he backed out on us, though.
Well, you know what? You could next year. You make sure that when they get to the champions, we expect the whole head goes blonde.
Yeah, when we come back here, the whole head.
Yes, okay, that's a deal. Congratulations, and have a good Thanksgiving.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate this.
At this time, I'd like to invite up Brian Sullivan, the president of the Corrections Benevolent Association.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
All right, now that we got all the good stuff out of the way, the happy stuff, we're going to make a little left turn at Albuquerque here. I'm usually never up here talking about the happy stuff. The stuff with the PD, the top cops, the things with these young people here, it's all good stuff, all very good stuff. Unfortunately, it's the same old thing in corrections. Everything old is new again at the Nassau County Correctional Facility. If you'll allow me a couple of minutes here, I just need to get some issues taken care of. 2 months ago, James Arenda was moved out as the Nassau County Sheriff. A new acting sheriff was appointed, and former Sheriff Michael Sposato, who was fired by former County Executive Laura Curran, was brought back as Correction Commissioner and given the job of running the day-to-day operations of this facility. To say that this union and our membership has been incensed with Sposato's return is about as big a huge understatement as you can get, since we have had a long, arduous, and publicly adversarial relationship with Michael Sposato. You may ask, why did we wait until now to act out? The answer is simple, since it was almost 2 months ago. We try. I try. I try to work with what's given to us. Over the 100-year history of this department, we have changed in administrations, unfortunately, like we change our socks in this department. And sometimes to my own detriment, I try. No one can say, and I'm sure everybody on this panel cannot say, that I am not a reasonable person. But I'm done banging my head against the wall about issues we have in the Department of Corrections. That's why I'm here today, not only with my executive board, but also with my entire board of delegates, all of these people standing behind me, representing our entire membership and voicing our opposition to Michael Sposato remaining in this role, picking up where he left off over 4 years ago. Sposato's previous tenure as sheriff was marked by draconian cuts to this facility. That's one of my favorite sayings. Leaving a completely demoralized workforce while also leaving the infrastructure of this facility in such a state that our buildings are visibly decaying into the ground. Everyone here is very familiar with what I've talked about when it comes to our infrastructure. The 4 years since Sposato's departure, 4.5 years, saw minor changes with 2 interim sheriffs And while thankfully the insanity of Mike Sposato was gone during that time, they both did little, or more likely were allowed to do little, to properly run or staff this facility. The ongoing narrative is that we can't get anything done for years in this department because there's no money. Then there was COVID. While obviously horrible, it was another convenient excuse to do nothing here but shut down. We cannot properly hire. We can't fix roofs. We can't use areas of the facility because they are condemned, on and on and on. Meanwhile, over the past few years, and God bless them, we've seen new police precincts built, a $40+ million academy built, new social services building is still being built as we speak, new buildings all around the county, departments all with new vehicles, and non-stop hiring in the police department. Non-stop. Since 2014, with the NIFA contracts that were done back then to get out of the freeze, over 1,400 new cops have been hired in Nassau County. I don't want to speak on the departures because I don't have those numbers handy, but 1,400 new cops have been hired, and they represent the bulk of the police officers in Nassau County. In corrections, we hired 295 in that same period, and we've lost 431. In numerous meetings and conversations with the county and department officials, we've been told that due to mismanagement here, we need to hire someone to manage this place. Overtime costs have skyrocketed. The only problem is that no one can give me an accurate number of what those costs are to justify the return of Mike Sposato and his ways. I've been told it's $30 million, $35 million, $40, $60 million. No one can give me an accurate number to justify further cuts to this already depleted and demoralized department. And the numbers I do get are commingled with other line items but are being counted as overtime. The actual numbers I do have are, and should be startling, although it shouldn't be startling to a lot of people because I've spoken about it enough times in this forum and several other forums. This year's budget for 2022 called for the hiring of 80 correction officers to get us to a head count of 790. 2 classes of 40 each, not taking into account attrition. Myself and representatives from the county, department, civil service conducted numerous meetings detailing a hiring protocol to get our staffing back to safe levels to adequately run this department. A new test was given, and there's still another full test available, so there are plenty of candidates in a pool that have to be gone through. But to date, we have not hired 80 or 100, as was discussed. Up until this past week, we hired 27 new recruits. To date, that's for this year. To date for this year, we've lost 37, with more on tap to retire at year's end. We hired 23 last week, but those recruits are going to be in the academy until the end of January. So for the year 2022, a year that we were promised 80 to 100 new hires, we actually hired 27 and are currently negative at least 10 officers from where we started in January. I don't know what kind of management this is, but somebody needs to get a new calculator. Not to mention, once again, due to shortages that never get addressed, the new academy class is going to be working 10-hour days and several 8- and 9-hour Saturdays to get them out sooner to cut overtime costs because we don't have enough staff. This has become routine now since we're hemorrhaging staff and only hiring in what I can describe as in spurts. Now at this juncture, in this space and time, we have yet another change in jail administrations, and the answer is to rehire Mike Sposato to run the day-to-day operations of this facility. To do what, I ask? Save this place? Manage it? Rebuild it? Come on. Let's hit the reset button with the very same person who drove this facility into the ground, who demoralized this entire workforce with his condescending mission of cutting this place to ribbons with no regard for the safety of inmates or officers. Does anyone remember the Armour Correctional inmate health debacle? I'm sure everybody here does, almost all. 13 dead inmates in 5 years during his tenure, all in the name of saving money on medical care for inmates. Constant news stories of mismanagement at the jail, demands from some of you on this very panel for his resignation. Well, with his return came an immediate return to his old ways of cutting and slashing costs in this department, a department that's already been cut to the bone and rife with mismanagement for years. A few weeks ago, county and department officials stood in front of the media at a jail at a press conference touting a raid that was conducted by the new jail administration where weapons and drugs were recovered. Our new Commissioner Sposato touted that this will not be tolerated and it's a new day in corrections, using our emergency response team as props standing behind them. That all sounds good, but I have 2 issues. First and foremost was the fact that those officials were standing in front of our B building, our most secure building on the grounds. And I don't know whether anybody noticed or not, but the building surrounded by razor ribbon behind them was completely covered in black mold. I guess nobody noticed, like everything else in this department that I've been ranting about for years. Second, while they touted a safe and secure jail going forward, the new commissioner, Mike Sposato, upon his return, immediately implemented a redeployment schedule that takes gang investigators, criminal investigators, medical investigators, human resources personnel, medical personnel, rehab personnel, away from performing their integral duties to work security posts in other areas for such things as meal reliefs, church services, etc., because there just is not enough staff to perform these duties, while leaving their important work neglected on a daily basis. We currently have a major Fair Labor Standards Act lawsuit pending against the county due to Mike Sposato's failure to process payroll for our members during his tenure as sheriff. It's an ongoing lawsuit. Now his redeployment schedule once again takes HR personnel away from doing their jobs, once again exposing this department and the county to further FLSA violations and liability. Additionally, a series of cuts were implemented in our security areas upon his return that not only created risk for officers and inmates, but also put the department at risk of liability, all in the name of saving on overtime because they refused to properly hire. Cuts that this union fought daily to have rescinded, only to have new cuts announced every few days over the past few weeks. We've been playing a game of cat and mouse with Sposato over his managed by 1,000 cuts agenda. Cutting is not managing. We also have blatant violations of our contract with regard to manipulating job posting assignments outside our strict seniority clauses in the contract. Then we have allegations that our ranking officers who are union members are being used in an administrative capacity in an effort to divide this membership from within. I don't know where we're going. I'm sure you'll hear about promotions that were recently made in defense of what I'm complaining about here today. What's Sullivan bitching about again? We just made promotions, including him. This is true. But let's be clear here. I have been at this podium and in numerous other forums over the past 5 years demanding promotions in this department, as we saw them being done in the PD, the deputies, etc. We lost over 40 supervisors in this department over the past 4 to 5 years who were not replaced. I've been here numerous times talking about that. These recent promotions were no gift. They simply and finally replenished our supervisory ranks after a 4-year-long fight to do so, alleviating this department's liability of not having the proper amount of supervisors in rank. Where do we go from here? What's the game plan from this department? As for us, with Mike Sposato, I think it's pretty obvious we want him out. We want and deserve leadership in this department that wants to move ahead with care and professionalism and proper resources. How do we stand here with a police department that has a leader like Pat Ryder, whose department runs like clockwork, is nationally respected, while the needs of this department and its workforce are ignored, disrespected, and treated with contempt year after year? At the beginning of this speech, I spoke about Laura Curran firing Mike Sposato upon her election as county executive. She actually fired him during her election night acceptance speech, which is something I've never seen before. At that time, he needed 1.5 years to reach his pension. I partially blame her for the mess that we're in now. She could have demoted him to some other position, allowed him to get his time, after which he'd be retired now, but that knee-jerk reaction left him lingering around, and now he's back and stuck in our craw again. If you'll allow me a couple of seconds here, I've spoken here numerous times about bail reform, about HALT, how HALT is bail reform in jail. Some stats that I have. Bear with me for a second, make sure I have all my information here. In 2018, before bail reform, when we had 1,100 inmates in this jail, we had 191 uses of force in our jail. We call it a use of force. Maybe the average, the public doesn't understand what that means. It's when staff is forced to use force against an inmate to stop them from committing a violent act in jail. 191 in 2018 with 1,100 inmates. 2022 to present, after bail reform, after HALT, we have about 750 inmates in the jail. Up to this year right now, we have 228 uses of force. Violence is up in our jails. Violence is up. Injury stats for officers and inmates back in 2018, with 1,100 inmates here, we had 214 injuries to staff. Right now, 2022, with 750 inmates, we're approaching 200. You could just, I'm not the mathematician here. It's obvious that the numbers are skewed. When it comes to inmate injuries, in 2018, again, 1,100 inmates. We had 1,099 injuries to inmates. That number, of course, it attaches all manner of injuries, catching your finger in a gate to being assaulted. 2022, with 750 inmates, we have 1,198, with 32% reduction in the inmates in our facility. I have to sue. Going back, it's not the fault of anybody here now, but just to show you what's going on in this department over the years. I've talked about roofs, infrastructure, everything else. I'm in an arbitration. I have to sue to get the roofs fixed because I can't get the roofs fixed. I'm at an arbitration. It's incredible what goes on here. I have to sue to get the department, and it goes back to the last administration, and it continues now, to have a workplace violence assessment done in our facility that includes inmates, includes officers and inmates. Hasn't been done in several years. I have to sue to get that done. All of this going on, and apparently Mike Sposato is the answer to fix this department. I have a constituency, as does everybody on this panel. In many regards, we have the same constituency. We need your help, attention, and participation. Mike Sposato, as sheriff, oversaw the greatest decline in the history of this department. Now this nuisance of a department is at a crossroads. Staffing, infrastructure, halt, you name it. When you see what goes on with the police department in this county, and then the way the sheriff's department is treated in comparison, it's a sin what goes on. What is the game plan? Mike Sposato is not the answer. Slashing security is not the answer. Deliberate violation of our contract cannot and will not be tolerated. Bad labor relations will not be tolerated. We will be here, we'll be in the street, we'll be in the community, in the courts, and in the news, holding this county and department accountable for everything related to Mike Sposato, just like we did before when he was here, if he is permitted to continue his reign of destruction over this department. So there. Thank you for your time. I'll take any questions.
Okay, Brian, you've been coming to us for years, and you've been strong on advocating for the membership, and what you've been telling us each and every time has been borne out by the facts. So you have with us a tremendous amount of credibility, and we would like to follow up on many of the points that you're making today, and would like a copy of your remarks. I was just speaking to Legislator Ford, who's the chair of the Public Safety Committee, that perhaps a hearing dedicated to these issues would be something that would be worthwhile.
That's a great start.
But again, you have tremendous credibility because when you've represented things to us, they've been borne out as factual. So it is very troubling. We have the utmost respect for your members. We understand that you're in an incredibly difficult position, that your members are in a difficult position, that your profession leads to shorter lifespans. It's a very difficult job, and we have to make sure that we are doing everything we can to support you and to make sure that you're doing it as effectively as you have been. So we would like to follow up on the points that you've made. And again, we'll figure out the
I'll
form
submit
of
a
that.
copy, and a hearing would be great.
Thank you very much. Brian, you have never been shy about fighting for the people that work at the jail, and you've always made it. I'm sorry, I'm going to lose my voice.
All right.
You've always been a great advocate, and we will have a hearing because I'm rather concerned over the fact that the roof still isn't fixed. I mean, it was. Thank you. It was probably like 19 years ago when I first visited the jail, and we had a problem with the roof. And it wasn't just, I think just a couple of years ago, right, Celia? We were there. We went on a tour. They laid out the whole game plan, how they were going to fix the roof, how much it was going to cost, blah, 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 the whole bit.
Nothing
and
happened.
I think many of us that have, especially have toured the jail and do support you in your offices, are very dismayed over the fact that we're still talking about the roof, okay? And I know that that is one of the, there's a lot of other problems, but I know that the roof is very key in protecting a lot of everything that's underneath it. And it's just a failure on the part of these administrations that just don't pay attention and don't act. You act, it's about time that they start following your lead and answering and listening to what needs to be done.
I can't stress enough, it's the staffing. Everything here revolves around staffing and replacing people that are going. That's the main thing. Yes, the roof, 100%. It's a perfect glaring example. Everything comes down to staffing.
And you know what? And you highlight even the fact with staffing, because, you know, as you know, I have family members that do work there. So I'm aware of, like, when people are forced into overtime. You know, it's not like everybody thinks, oh, you're going to make extra money. It isn't always welcomed. A lot of people are sacrificing. They may have to work, they thought they were going to have off Thanksgiving. Now they have to work Thanksgiving. They may have something they have to do. No, they have to stay over. They're compelled. They are forced to be there. And a lot of times, too, it's not very good for their health and for their own personal safety.
I can't reiterate enough that at this point in time, after all of this stuff and all of these things that we've done and tried to do, to hit the reset button and put back the one person that my entire membership blames for destroying this department, and hit the reset button, and we're going to start from there. It's a real kick in the teeth. It really is.
And I understand your frustration. So to share it with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Minority Leader Abrahams.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First, I want to say, just in response to Legislator Ford, that the roof replacement and roof work is actually in the capital plan, and it's highlighted. So we're urging our colleagues, but I know, Brian, you've heard this before.
It's been in the capital plan for several years.
So obviously we're going to continue not just to push to get through the capital plan, but push it through the contract and the RFP and whatever else needs to get done. That process is important and integral because you've been here before. But to talk a little bit more about some of the other points that you made, and obviously the infrastructure of the building is extremely important. There seems to be, by representation by everyone that's here today, that's on your board, that there's a very important issue that hasn't been discussed, at least so far, and that's the relationship that the union has with Mrs. Posada. I mean, I don't understand how he plans to lead the facility if your delegation feels this way. I mean, your comments, not to mix words, are very strong. And obviously, I mean, some of my colleagues up here had the opportunity to work with Mr. Posada over the years, and some of the things as pertains to the armor contract, we disagree heavily with him, that he recommended, among other things. And I think when we do have the hearing, Madam Chair Ford, is that's a very pointed question. It may seem arbitrary in the sense that, well, people work with people all the time that they're not able to, that they don't have the confidence in, but this is very damning. And from our standpoint, we feel that the administration will have an opportunity to rectify it, if not with some level of oversight, but potentially naming someone, not him. But from that standpoint, I think that question has to get addressed. I don't think in my history here I've seen an entire delegation from a particular collective bargaining unit completely dismiss the current commissioner of the department that they report to. I don't think I've seen it, and I think that should not go unnoticed, because I think from that standpoint it speaks volumes. It's not just Brian Sullivan here and a few of the key members of the union, of the collective bargaining unit. It's this entire delegation, from top to bottom. And from that standpoint, I think the Commissioner Posada is going to have a really difficult time leading the jail if he doesn't have the confidence of the membership of your union. So we're going to closely, obviously, watch that, and I look forward to the date of when the hearing's actually scheduled. And as I said before, we envision that the capital plan, I know it's on the calendar today, but it's going to probably be called and then recessed, but we plan to envision doing it next month. Not just calling for the infrastructure work to be done, but also, more importantly, making sure it gets through the contract and the RFP process as well. But Sully, as always, and I think I agree with the comments that were made by the presiding officer, you've always demonstrated when you came here to be someone that would sound the alarm, and we are appreciative of that. And you've always been someone that we could see as a straight shooter, even though some of the stuff is sometimes our fault, something that we don't act on as quickly as possible. So we always appreciate your straightforwardness and your honesty. But thank you again.
I appreciate that. Just to talk about the armor stuff, it's kind of, if it wasn't sad, it's funny that armor correctional is not allowed to practice in New York State, to my knowledge. but the person that brought him in here is back.
Legislator DeRidge-Whitten.
Actually, Minority Leader Abrahams mentioned it, but the roof is in the capital plan, and for what it's worth, it's highlighted, which means it's a priority. So we are going to really focus on it, and I think you have all of our support up here, because obviously if there's something wrong with the roof, you're going to have issues with mold and everything else, so it has to be addressed. And, you know, I know morale is a tough and important subject with all of you, especially after COVID and everything else you've dealt with, and I kind of feel bad. It looks like you kind of are the poster child for people that have low morale right now, but just know that
750 officers and over 600 cases of COVID, and now this is what we're dealing with.
know that we really do appreciate everything you do, and I know just walking through those doors into that facility, it's a very strange feeling when you're inside of there, and you all spend so much of your life in there, and it's you know, we respect you, but we want to show it by giving you better work atmosphere, and your words don't go unheard. I was actually stunned when I heard of that reappointment. I couldn't believe it, but I'm hoping, I don't know how much time he has left, but let's hope his time is almost done, and hopefully maybe they could think about putting him somewhere else if that's the consideration, but that's for other people to decide, but that would be my recommendation.
Mine too.
Okay, anyone else? We're good. All right, thank you again.
Thank you for your
Appreciate
time.
being here.
Back on to happy stuff. Thank you.
Tatum?
Good afternoon, Presiding Officer. I respectfully request the same courtesy that was shown to COBA in allowing me some time just to fill in some gaps, some facts that I think will help us all see big picture as you prepare for your hearing, if I may.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Firstly, Sheriff LaRocca and Commissioner Sposato are mitigating operational issues that I'll get into a little bit of detail with. They both combined have the experience needed. The focus is on management. Armor is gone, thankfully. NUMIC is our current healthcare provider. As Captain Sullivan just mentioned, 57 officers were recently promoted in all ranks on October 25th. Everyone here would agree that's the most promotion in years. Again, why? The focus is on management. As for hiring, there are difficulties that we face. Currently, we're working off the 2019 civil service list. Approximately 485 failed to comply, which means they did not appear or did not cooperate when canvassed. Approximately 100 investigations were approved, but only 7 applicants accepted the conditional offer of employment. In June, we graduated a class of 26. Last week, we swore in 23 recruits. Conditional offer of employments were sent to 20 applicants. 3 deferred, 17 accepted. They will go into phase 2 of hiring. We requested more names from civil service to increase for the next class. 20 pending investigations should be completed by the end of January. There is a 2020 list following the 2019 list that's being canvassed now. Civil service contacted 220 people and only 45 appeared to start the process. So these are the difficulties we face in hiring that I just want you to be able to appreciate. Now, the jail population and overtime. For reference, overtime in 2019 with 1,011 inmates average was 27 million. Overtime in 2021 with 712 inmates was 31 million. So less inmates, more overtime. Simply stated, that does not add up operationally. So let's talk about where we are to date. The budgeted overtime for 2022 is 21.5 million. To date, we're at 27.3, but we still have to get through November and December. As Legislator Ford pointed out, those are high overtime months due to the holidays. The overtime is projecting to be around 32 to 33 million. That's $11 to $12 million over budget. We have correction officers making close to, or in some instances, more than their salaries in overtime. Some of it is purely security, and that's nothing we can do to manage that. But the non-secure posts, that's where we can manage. By way of example, in 2021, a correction officer whose base salary was $107,000 made $203,000 above that in overtime, totaling $311,000. That's just an example of no management. So we're not looking to cut to the bone. We're just looking to manage better. The correctional officers do a phenomenal job every day, every night, 365, 7 days, 24 hours. They are in the infrastructure that definitely needs work, and is in the capital plan. The master plan's in the capital plan. I'm told the roof is going out to bid in January, so I defer to DPW on the infrastructure. But I just thought it was very important to emphasize that safety will never be compromised for officers or inmates. However, it is our duty to the taxpayers to manage the extreme overtime being generated with less inmates in custody. Thank you for your time.
I just wanted to follow up on one thing before I turn it over. That's number of inmates is down, overtime is up. That's only part of the equation, though. I mean, as Mr. Sullivan just indicated, the county over the last several years has not been keeping up with attrition. So the number of corrections officers is down. So if you have fewer corrections officers, it's always been the case as long as I've been here. If you have fewer officers in any sworn area, you're going to have greater overtime. It happened with the police. It happens with every union. So if you're losing officers, I don't know that you can blame management if you don't have sufficient officers to cover it.
So to that point, in 2019, there were 816 correction officers. In 2021, there were 739. Our budgeted headcount is 783 for 22. 23, it's 790. Currently on board, we have 720. So we do have the budgeted headcount if I could get through the difficulties we face getting the applicants, which I outlined earlier. We are budgeted. We just have to get the heads, get the bodies in for the job, and we're working on it.
Okay, just one other thing. Even though the head count is down in terms of inmates, does that equate to different shifts, different patrols? I mean, does that mean you're definitely going to have, you should definitely have fewer hours being put in?
Well, it's how many housing units you have open, what you can consolidate, what you can't.
Yeah, I think this is a discussion, as Legislator Ford indicated. She'll have a hearing, but I think it's the answers to some of these questions obviously comes from you, but as well as Mr. Sullivan and his representatives, so that we can parse out the real facts. Minority Leader Abrahams.
How are you, Ms. Fox?
I'm well, sir. Thank you.
I don't want to start off by saying I was troubled by some of the things you said, but I just want to make sure I understand. When you brought up the context of an officer that makes $103,000, and now with overtime they see an additional $203,000 that bumps them over $300,000. What point were you trying to make?
I was trying to show that overtime needs to be managed.
But by you saying that, and I understand that overtime needs to be managed, it could come off like you are saying the correction officer is the reason why we have the high overtime.
I'm saying overtime was absolutely not managed.
But how can overtime be managed more properly when I hear at the jail officers are told they can't go home?
So there's security, which that is true, and then there's non-secure posts, rehab, let's say. There's other posts that you could manage overtime way better, and it was not being managed at all.
Got it. So overtime could be managed more, can be managed better.
Yes.
However, there is a degree of secure areas that are at the jail where even if an officer didn't want overtime, he wouldn't be able to go home because of the staffing restriction, because of the lack of staffing that's there.
This administration is fully on board to hire and staff up. We agree on that.
Okay. But to me, and I've known you for quite some time, so I'm going to think that maybe I interpreted it the wrong way. But for me, when I hear that kind of number, it seems like we are trying to, in the lack of a better word, demonize the folks that are receiving it, even though they have no control it sometimes if they're in secure units, to be able to determine whether or not they even want it.
That's an outlier. If that was the case, then everyone would be making that amount of overtime. The whole job isn't making that amount of overtime, so I'm not trying to demonize whatsoever. I'm trying to point out that's an example. Otherwise, everyone would be working that amount of overtime if it was that bad.
Like I said, I've known you for some time, and like I said, I just want to take it for what I interpreted it to be, because usually when I hear, and I've been through quite a few administrations, Republican and Democrat, when I hear folks from the administration bring up stuff like that, which we understand that could be an outlier, it could be one issue, it seems like we are trying to say that, what do you mean the correction officers have it good? They're making $200,000 on top of their salary. Why are they complaining? But I'll take it that you did not mean it that way.
I appreciate you letting me clarify.
Okay, sounds good. But I do want to highlight the fact that wasn't brought up with the presiding officer. It seems like you had mentioned that Mr. Posada has the integral experience to be able to run the facility. The previous administration, I guess, either didn't value that experience, thought that experience was the wrong experience, whatever may be the case, they decided to dismiss him. That being said, the current administration is using him in a capacity, in a leadership form, to work with the interim sheriff to be able, Mr. LaRocca, to ensure that something happens. You just heard from the head of the collective bargaining unit, head of the Correctional Officers Association, say that we can't work with him. We choose not to. And I'm not saying they choose not to, but I don't want to put words in their mouths. But they're clearly saying they cannot work with him. Are we saying that it's going to be the administration's way, hell or high water? I mean, what exactly are we saying to the membership of that union?
Sure. So I was just at the facility, I want to say maybe 2 weeks ago, could have been 3, forgive me with the time, but I was walking in to meet with Sheriff LaRocca and Commissioner Sposato, and as I was walking in, the entire COBRA board was walking out having a meeting with them. So there is no indication to me that they're not working together.
But did you hear what he said today?
I heard how they feel about him.
Oh,
yes.
You said, okay. But the words were very pointed. They're very clear. Not to quote Mr. Sullivan, but he clearly said, we want him out.
That's his opinion.
No, that's the opinion of the entire delegation, not just his own opinion. His entire delegation spoke to that.
Yes, I did hear that. Sheriff LaRocca is in charge of the jail. Commissioner Sposato is the Commissioner of Corrections, and they work together, but Commissioner Sposato reports to the sheriff.
See, I think this will have to, Madam Chair, this is going to have to get clarified in terms of the hierarchy and how this works. So if I'm understanding you correctly, everything stops with Sheriff LaRocca. He makes the final decisions.
He's the sheriff, yes.
And Mr. Posada is a part of those decisions?
Yes, in the org chart, sheriff here, line down, Commissioner of Corrections.
And then Mr. LaRocca reports to you?
Correct.
So if there was a concern that the membership had that they didn't feel was being addressed properly with the current configuration of leadership, Mr. LaRocca, or with Mr. Posada, who's advising Mr. LaRocca, they can bring that concern to you?
They can.
Okay. All right. I think what we have to do is we have to be able to address that issue a little bit more, because obviously there are. Look, I'll just say it frankly. How do we not know Mr. Posada is going to advise Mr. LaRocca of something that the union may see as retaliatory? And we don't know that.
I think that's speculating. I'm not sure.
No, it's not. Well, unless you're saying that the entire delegation is speculating, because that's the impression that we're getting.
I'm not aware of any retaliation.
All right. I got a lot of respect for you. So I'm giving you a lot of rope here. I don't want to play politics from the podium.
Right.
So let's do this. Let's have the hearing. We'll be able to address some of the issues. I think I'm just saying from your standpoint, representing the administration, I want you to be prepared, if Mr. Posada is not here himself, to be able to answer the questions on how the decision-making process occurs in regards to Mr. Posada advising the sheriff on what issues. Issues that are related to security or issues related to the infrastructure at the jail being replaced. We need to be able to understand all of that. As I said before, and then you've been here, Tatum, for a long time too, in my 20 years, I've seen union presidents have concerns with what they have said about commissioners all the time. I hear that all the time. That's a part of the process. I hear that all the time. People disagree. As much as Sully talked about Commissioner Ryder, I've heard union presidents come up and say negative things about commissioners before. So that's nothing new. That being said, I've never seen an entire delegation say that. So from that standpoint, to me, I'm understanding this incorrectly by Mr. Sullivan, they are perceiving that Mr. Posada, that the buck stops with him. Now, they have a different impression than what you're telling us. So I think we need to expand and review that a little bit more during our hearing.
And if I don't want to belabor this, just one last point. If I recall correctly, COBA did ask for Sheriff Flood to be removed. I believe they had said they had no confidence in her, but she stayed on. So there have been times, just by way of example, where the delegation has gone and said something about another sheriff.
Mm-hmm. Understandable. That's it. I'm done. Thank you.
I agree with you. Thank you very much for speaking today. And I guess just to follow up with Legislator Abraham's his question, when you talk about the secure and the non-secure posts, what are the ratios? How many, like, if there's like 780?
I don't have that answer as I stand here today, but we can get that for you.
All right, well, that will definitely be something that we will be asking for. In regard to the hiring, what priorities have been placed to expedite? And have we looked at and investigated to find out what are the drawbacks in people taking these jobs? If they have taken the test, you reach out to them, and we know that if it was 2019, we're talking 3 years later. They may have gotten a job elsewhere. They're working, may have moved out of state. But if we have a test from 2018 and a list from 2020, am I correct? Am I saying this wrong?
2019 list and a 2020 list.
And what's the latest? We just gave a test or what? No.
We have another list, I believe, after that, but I can confirm that.
Okay, and have we exhausted 2019?
We are exhausting it as we speak. These last 20 pending investigations will exhaust the list, but we have the other list. And as I said, 220 people were contacted, 45 are interested, and they're being investigated.
All right, and do we have dedicated investigators that are working just strictly on the hiring of correction officers?
Yes.
Okay, so that they follow it through, they do the backgrounds, they're not doing any other job, they're just working with candidates for corrections?
Yes, Commissioner Ryder has been great at dedicating people just to focus on corrections.
And we did pass it so that they can be hired from out of Nassau County, correct?
Yes.
All right, that's the one thing. My concern, though, too, is when we talk about, even with the overtime, that's one issue that will have to be examined. But even when you talked about that, you had 1,100 inmates, and overtime is, say, 27 million. I'm just throwing the numbers out there. But now we have like 800 inmates, and overtime is $10 million more. And I agree with the presiding officer. I think that that's because we have less officers. We have to, because we have to maintain these posts, we have to make sure that you have the proper number of officers working at all times, not only for their protection, for the protection of the inmates as well. But also, the President Sullivan did bring up that the levels of violence has increased dramatically. So that has me concerned as well. that why such an increase, you know, if we have less, you have less inmates, but yet the number of occurrences of violence is almost the same as when there were 1,100 inmates.
Well, we have to remember
Yeah.
the more serious offenders are incarcerated right now due to
Right.
bail reform and criminal justice reform. So that's definitely one
Right.
of the reasons. And the county executive tasked me with getting 100 correction officers in 2022. I've been trying with civil service. They have been great. They've tried to expedite. We had been having biweekly calls with the union just so they could be in the loop and not in the dark about what are we actually doing to try to get classes. So I'm happy to reestablish those biweekly meetings with COBA. And again, the budgeted headcount is there. We can get there. It's going to take some time, but we're working on it to increase the staffing to where it should be.
Well, I think, you know, you should work with the union. But I think also, you know, I don't have, you know, whether or not, but, you know, I think Legislative Abrahams did bring up an important point to have the whole board of ACOBA here, you know, speaking on behalf of their members. And one of the highlights they brought out was that the commissioner, that there is not a level of confidence in this person. It obviously is impacting morale, and that's where I have a concern. You know, I have to say that. It's, you know, I worry about them. You know, they always feel like they've been the stepchildren in the county, and they shouldn't feel like that. But sometimes, I guess, actions that happen speak louder than words, and I really think that we have to consider this and really take a hard look at what's happening over in that jail and try to rectify it, because I think we need to. But thank you.
Okay, Minority Leader Abrahams, then Legislator Drucker.
Thank you, Presiding
And then
Officer.
we'll
And
move on.
I just want to say I appreciate this because I know this is not the formal hearing,
Right,
but
right.
but obviously it's turned into a back and forth. When you get a chance, Ms. Fox, if you can look into other practices that are done throughout the country in terms of hiring correction officers, I would like to see it. I know you had said that civil service has worked with us, and we're just not able to get the numbers that we want. I don't know if it's an issue. I mean, look, the correctional officers have one of the toughest jobs between them and police officers in this country. And that could be an issue too, in regards to the job itself just being a tough job, and many people just don't see it as an attractive job. But one of the things I did see, and I mean, I might be speaking a little out of turn here. I was driving back from Virginia this past weekend, and one of the things I did see, and it was in Delaware. They actually, and Sully might like to hear this. They actually provide bonuses to people who actually get through the process, take the job as an incentive to get the job. I don't know if that's something that's allowable in New York State or, quite frankly, in Nassau County, but to me, it seemed a little bit innovative that they were offering $5,000, $10,000 bonuses for people, signing bonuses to become a correction officer. Now, this was in their New York State correctional system. So this is a state thing. So obviously there may be restrictions in regards to doing that here in the county. But to me, if it seems like we're having less officers and officers are looking at the salary pay scales and applicants are looking at the salary pay scales and they're determining to themselves that it's not worth it, or we're not getting enough people, because we know there's going to be a drop-off and we're not getting enough people, then there has to be something that we can do, and this is not anything new, that we can make the job more attractive. And I don't want to say that money is the beholden to everything. Obviously, you know, good quality of life, mental health are also good aspects of people taking on a position as well. But I just don't know if we're doing everything we can in our capacity. So if you can look into that practice, I don't know if it's allowable in New York State. I'd have to have our attorneys look into it a little bit more and research it. But it's something that I saw as I was driving back. I saw these big billboard signs throughout the state of Delaware that advertised signing bonuses to become a correction officer. Obviously, that would require them to actually get through the testing. You just can't sign for the test. Obviously, get through the testing, get through the background checks, get through the academy, everything else. But I'm just saying that could be something that we should be taking a look. I just feel like and I disagree with the presiding officer, I just feel like we're always at the point where individuals like yourselves say that we're doing all we can to hire. The union, everyone agrees that we need to hire, and then it just never materializes.
Yes, and it is frustrating. I do understand that.
Okay. Legislator Drucker. I'm sorry, President Officer.
Right, that'll be it.
Yeah, thank you, President Officer. I just wanted to summarize. I don't want to get into the go back and forth like we've been doing. You know, there's an inherent conflict between management and labor in any organization, any agency, any governmental association. And this administration is management, and Mr. Sullivan's membership is the workforce. And it is our job as the legislative body here to make sure that, and it's the management's responsibility too, to make sure that the needs and wants and requests of the workforce are met, or at least addressed and considered. So apparently what we're hearing today is that there's a disconnect. There's a disconnect between membership and Mr. Sposato. And that needs to be fleshed out. And I welcome a meeting, Chairwoman Ford, and I hope that all of the legislators would be invited to that hearing to participate, because it's important. We need to understand, all of us, this is not a political thing. This is about safety. And we need to make sure that the needs and wants are reasonable, and they should be met, and they can be met. And management is listening, that we're not supposed to be afraid that the message isn't getting through. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for coming down, Tatum. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you, legislative body.
Okay. So, Joel Burse. Joel Burse, that's you.
Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you for calling me. I am Joel Burse. I'm the immediate past president of the Northwest Civic Association of Hicksville. Having been incorporated in 1951, it is the oldest active organization in Hicksville. Our dilemma with the redistricting, and I was at last week's hearing, is that we are only a segment of Hicksville, and we are represented by 3 separate legislative districts. We have ridiculous boundary lines, and when I came to the hearing, they had no listing of what the streets were. We have a problem. Our boundaries, as incorporated with the state, are the town line between North Hempstead and Oyster Bay down Caniag Lane, the north side of the Hicksville train station trestle. The east side boundary is down the center of Broadway Route 107, and the northern boundary is the line between Hicksville and Jericho. Our 14th district is the main district that we have, but to the north we have a jagged district where people on side streets are in opposite districts across the street from each other. Our current president is on Dakota Street serving in the 16th district, and our former vice president, Mary Garone, who just recently passed away in Virginia, lived in the 14th district. And you're talking about a street 30 feet wide. On the western boundary, the community known as Jericho Gardens, which is the triangle of 200-something houses between Caniag Lane and Caniag Rock Road, represents the very little tip of the northeast corner of the 2nd district, and you can see on the map that Caniag Lane bisects that community. They are known as a Westbury post office. They call themselves Jericho Gardens. They were built in the 70s, well after our incorporation, and they have Hicksville Fire, Hicksville Water, and Hicksville Schools. So they should belong together with us, represented wholly by one legislator, because people are confused who to go to and who to have something done. And unfortunately, in certain cases, we've been considered a minority section of a district insignificant to the voting. And that's not with the current 3 legislators, I could say with predecessors. But we need to get redistricted, and we'd like to be wholly within the 14th, that the northern boundaries that zigzag like this and like this be moved to where they were originally in the first legislature, where it was at the Hicksville-Jericho line to the north. So in summing up, I thank you for listening. I know this isn't the prime topic today, But moving forward, I'd like this to be considered, and I know the legislators that serve us now know about this because I have spoken to all of them individually. Thank you and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Mr. Burris. Happy Thanksgiving to you. There will be hearings before the legislature on the maps, and there will be opportunities as well for you to submit either a form statement or email statements. So you'll have plenty of opportunities going forward.
Well, the problem is there was no list of what the streets were. It was just a drawn map that you couldn't figure out the whole
I
thing.
think the maps that we'll have maps up on the website. I think you'll be able to see exactly what you need to see from the maps we produce.
Thank you.
Okay. Casey Dubovsky.
Hi, my name is Casey Dubovsky. I was 3 when I had a life-threatening allergic reaction in a restaurant after taking a bite of dessert with hazelnuts in it. Although I was really young, I still remember the fear and panic that washed over my parents when they realized I was having an allergic reaction. I remember my tongue being itchy, my eyes burning, and my throat beginning to feel tight. I was screaming and crying. Thank God we reached the hospital in time. I was given epinephrine right away and then steroids. I was one of the lucky ones. Although I was only 3, that day had a profound impact on my life. I grew up with the constant fear that I would eat the wrong food by mistake. According to a 2020 study published by the Journal of Allergy and Clinical Immunology, 54% of all allergic reactions to food occur in restaurants. What's worse is that allergic reactions tend to be more severe than those that occur at home. You see, restaurants tend to be places where people of all ages experiment with new foods, unwittingly exposing themselves to allergens they haven't been exposed to in the past. Another reason why restaurants are the site of so many life-threatening allergic reactions is due to cross-contamination. Cross-contamination occurs when food is accidentally contaminated with foreign allergens during the preparation process. This just happened to me the other night. We reviewed my allergies with our waitress 5 times, yet she gave us the wrong information and fish ingredients were in the salad I ordered. Although my parents were diligent and the waitress made a mistake, in some cases of severe allergies, mistakes can cost people their lives. I visited colleges this week and was excited by what I saw, yet in the back of my head there was always fear of letting my guard down, of not having an EpiPen available if something happens. Today this is what this legislation is all about. Today there are over 4,000 restaurants in Nassau County. None of these establishments have an EpiPen available for emergency use. This forces someone experiencing anaphylactic shock to wait for an ambulance. The RELACT. The proposed legislation would create a pilot program authorizing the Nassau County Department of Health to purchase and distribute EpiPens to restaurants that participate. This program will encourage local restaurants that opt in to keep EpiPens on site. The bill will also allow restaurants to designate a person or persons on their staff to receive EpiPen training in conformity with state health regulations. Having an EpiPen on restaurant premises may allow a family member or trained worker in the restaurant to administer a dose of epinephrine immediately, potentially saving lives. Everyone here needs to keep working to make this a reality. We all can play our own part. I implore our elected officials to bring Representative Lafazan's legislation to a vote. It's not complicated. It's not about politics. It's about doing something now that will save lives in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Lindsay Dubovsky.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Dubovsky. I am the mother of Casey, a child with food allergies. Casey is allergic to tree nuts, fish, shellfish, and coconut. At the age of 3, Casey had her first life-threatening allergic reaction at a local restaurant. Like any parent, I was horrified. Each time we eat out in a restaurant, I would interrogate the staff about the origins of the food. A few months after Casey's first reaction, she had another one in a restaurant, and we asked the waiter and the manager if there were any nut ingredients used in a dessert that she wanted to try. Turns out the dessert was made with hazelnut flour, and minutes after her first bite, we were on our way to the emergency room. Every day we live in constant fear that this will happen again. As a parent, your instinct is to protect your child from harm. Over the years, there were times when we kept Casey away from birthday parties, school events, and other gatherings, anywhere we felt that she might encounter something that might send her to the hospital. But at the same time, as a parent, you want your child to have the same experiences that you've had and other kids have had. You don't want to tell them they can't be with their friends or go to restaurants and do things that they want to do. After Casey's first reaction, I was given a set of EpiPens. From that day forward, we have carried them with us. There are times that we have forgotten them, and when this happens, Casey just doesn't eat. The Real Act would require restaurants to have an EpiPen on hand so that people can feel safe. Researchers have noted that most people's first allergic reaction occurs when they are trying a new food. So why would we think twice about having emergency medication on hand in a restaurant? It's natural for all of us to go to the gym and see a defibrillator hanging on the wall. Defibrillators haven't always been there, but it's common sense to have them there. In this case, in an emergency, it can save somebody's life. It should be common sense that restaurants have EpiPens in case they serve something to a person that could potentially kill them. Every 3 minutes, an allergic reaction to food results in an emergency room visit. We have to stop this.
Jill Mindlin. Jill Mindlin. Okay.
Hello, and thank you for listening to us today. My name is Jill Minlin, and like the Dubofskis, our family has dealt with life-threatening food allergies for my daughter's entire life. She's 21 years old now, and since she was 9 months old, she has been anaphylactic, which means very, very deathly allergic, to milk, eggs, peanuts, tree nuts, and sesame seeds. So every day, as they were talking about the Dubofsky family, we have to manage how do we go out to restaurants, how do we go to birthday parties, etc. It's been a whole lifetime of that. Restaurants in particular are very tricky because you're putting the food preparation in somebody else's hands. So like the Dubofskis, we have to go over everything in detail with the restaurants and make sure it's crystal clear. Unfortunately, it makes it very difficult for people with food allergies to go out to eat at all. This bill that they're proposing, Legislator Lafazan, would make it accessible for restaurants to get epinephrine, what they call stock epinephrine. There's already legislation on the books that allows restaurants to have epinephrine on premises, but there's no way for them to access it. So this bill would effectively close the loop and help save lives by having this epinephrine available. Now, we're very fortunate, like the Lubofskis, we have our own EpiPens, we carry them, my daughter carries them with her wherever she goes, but that's not true of everyone. Some people can't afford to carry epinephrine, it's very expensive. Other people, like she mentioned, we may forget on occasion. And more importantly, there is an overwhelming majority of food allergy reactions that happen for the first time outside the home in a restaurant. So somebody wouldn't have an epinephrine auto-injector because they haven't been diagnosed yet. So what we're asking for is a very simple legislation just to help, again, close the loop to keep everyone safe in restaurants. We also want to point out this is not just about saving lives, although certainly we would hope that you'd want to help do that. This is about helping the Nassau County economy as well. There's over 135,000 people in Nassau County who have food allergies. If you multiply that by the average family, let's say family of 4, that's 500,000 people who are not dining out in Nassau County restaurants because of fear. So if we work together to help not only save lives, but also save the economy, I think it's a win-win for everybody. Thank you.
Maya Konoff.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you again for hearing us out today.
Like my mom just spoke before, my name is Maya Konoff. I'm a resident of Nassau County, and I, like she said, was diagnosed at just 9 months old with anaphylactic allergies to dairy, eggs, peanuts, tree nuts, and sesame seeds. And that's something that I've dealt with my entire life. Like my mom mentioned as well, many people experience their first episode of anaphylaxis when they're not in the home. And that can be people who have never been diagnosed, as well as people who do have known food allergies but develop new ones, because a food allergy can develop at any point in their life. I myself developed another food allergy aside from the ones that I was diagnosed with. I developed a new allergy to lentils when I was 18 years old, and this came as a shock to us. I had eaten them safely my whole life, and then one time eating lentil soup went into anaphylactic shock. And it's very important that epinephrine gets given right away. Something that's taught by the medical community and the food allergy community is a slogan. We say epi first, epi fast. The vast majority of allergic reactions that end in fatality, those fatalities occur because they were not given epinephrine. This is the only drug, the most important frontline drug for treating anaphylactic reactions. So like we've all mentioned already, we're asking you to please bring this bill to a vote and to ultimately pass it into law to allow the EpiPen pilot program for restaurants to take place in Nassau County. Thank you again for listening to us, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Christopher Duffy.
Good afternoon. I'm Chris Duffy, resident of Massapequa, and I'm here to urge you to hold a hearing on the EpiPen pilot program for restaurants, which would fund a county effort to provide restaurants with life-saving epinephrine for those with food allergies. I've had a deadly allergy to peanuts and tree nuts since I was a child and could have died on one occasion were it not for having an EpiPen on hand. My brother developed the deadly allergy and was hospitalized for anaphylactic shock at age 28. When I first heard about this proposal to have EpiPens in restaurants, it was such a basic, sensible concept that I was kind of surprised that I had never thought of it and that it wasn't prominent elsewhere. For such a basic medicinal item that is more necessary in restaurants than anywhere else in the world, it seems that it should be obvious that it's equally as required as soap and basic hygiene equipment in restaurant kitchens. I would imagine that many of you, to get elected to your seats, ran on public safety, to lower crime and boost safety in Nassau County. And while this notion may seem conceptually silly, for tens of thousands of people in Nassau County, restaurant food constitutes as much of or more of a safety risk than crime on a daily basis. If they make a mistake just one time, they could lose their life. Providing restaurants in Nassau County would do wonders for making this a safe and secure place to live, which I'm sure all of you would support. I hope that you start to take health initiatives like this one as part of your general public safety initiatives more often. Protecting citizens' lives is the most basic of government's responsibilities. As the corrections officer emphasized earlier, Nassau County spends millions on public safety and law enforcement. This pilot program would require only a $25,000 investment to test out a program that could save countless lives in the long term. That is a relatively modest cost. Given that, I ask all of you to hold a hearing on this bill and to ultimately pass it for the sake of 135,000 Nassau County residents who have life-threatening food allergies. Thank you.
Jennifer Gross.
Good afternoon. When you are watching your child have an allergic reaction and are frightened that their airway is closing, you're not concerned if the restaurant is in a Democratic or Republican-leaning community. You only care about saving their life. I'm Jennifer Gross, and I'm here today as an advocate of the proposed bill to mandate EpiPens in restaurants across Nassau County. Food allergies are truly an epidemic, and having the precautions in place to treat anaphylactic shock is a bipartisan issue, which I see as a necessity for us to address. I was eating at a restaurant with my daughter 5 years ago when at the last minute we decided to order the house special dessert. We asked if the dish was nut-free many times, and we were reassured by our waiter that it was, only to find out later that our red velvet Valentine's cake was made with almond flour. By this point, I had to administer emergency EpiPens and found ourselves in an ambulance once again, which I thankfully was very appreciative of. My daughter is anaphylactic to peanuts, tree nuts, sesame, and shellfish, and we have been in these life and death situations way too many times. Too often people are actually misinformed when it comes to ingredients in their food. Being in a restaurant poses not only risks of cross-contamination, but the misinformation regarding hidden ingredients, such as walnut oil in a salad dressing or a shellfish broth in rice pilaf. This bipartisan issue spans all demographics. Every year, I hear stories about children who have fallen victim to lethal allergic reactions. Having EpiPens mandated at restaurants is like having restaurant workers trained to perform the Heimlich maneuver, both indicative of the responsibility of the establishment, not just to feed patrons, but to save a life. Ensuring EpiPens are present in eateries across Nassau County is like insurance for a restaurant, in addition to being a vital form of life support. Thank you.
Olga Kagan.
Good afternoon. My name is Olga Kagan from Great Neck, New York, and I'm here to speak in capacity as a parent of children with food allergies, as a nurse, a public health advocate. Statistics you've heard today is very real. I know some of it came from epidemiologic studies, but we also have data from actually insurance claims that states that anaphylaxis to foods, which is severe allergic reactions, has increased by 377% between 2007 and 2016. And more than a third of those reactions were in people 18 and older. So it's not just children that fall victims to this epidemic, growing epidemic, it's also the adults. So we have an increased number of adult onset food allergies. And I guess no one in this room is immune from that, because we never know when we're going to develop one. So it's always better to be prepared. And what this ask that we have today is building on existing legislation. We ask that you bring Bill 9022, epinephrine restaurant pilot program, to a hearing and ultimately pass this bill into law. So I'm not going to belabor the points of what you've heard today, but just to echo what previous individuals have mentioned, it's very real, and I think it affects many, many of us, whether personally, as neighbors, as a community, and we hope to be the leaders here in Nassau County for our New York State. Thank you.
Okay, Julian Ostrow. Okay. Rose Ostrow. Alana Osted. Okay, those are all the slips I had on the EpiPen legislation.
Presiding officer, may I?
Yes.
So I just want to give kudos to where kudos is due. Casey Dubofsky, as a teenage student at Jericho High School, is the brainchild behind this bill. She came to me 3 years ago and asked me a simple question, which is, why don't restaurants have EpiPens in them? I didn't know the answer, and it took us years of research, and the answer is the cost. It costs $500 for a pair of 2 EpiPens that expire after 18 months. And we know our restaurants have taken a tough road during COVID and the loss of business. We see restaurants closing every week. It's too big a burden for many restaurants to take on. And so this bill is very simple, right? It's going to establish a pilot program of $25,000 out of a budget of $3.5 billion to have restaurants opt in, as opposed to be a mandate, to be reimbursed for EpiPens on premises. We already have, per Casey and her mom and dad's efforts, we already have about 20 plus restaurants who have said they'd opt in. Coach Meeting House in Oyster Bay, Grace's Market, so many restaurants which we patronize. And they would opt into this program. This bill would save lives. We know that so many people die waiting for an ambulance when they undergo anaphylactic shock. This bill would help the economy. There's 4,100 restaurants in this county, all of whom would be eligible under this pilot program. This bill would actually save taxpayer dollars money. So yes, it's a $25,000 outlay, but when we think about the cost of sending paramedics to a restaurant, and we think about the cost of not having to do that because EpiPens would be on premises, it's going to pay for itself right away. So we're just simply asking for a hearing or a committee vote or a working group or some sort of public assurance that this will move forward. I sponsored this on March 30th, 2022, and I know this body takes up a number of issues, many of which may have taken priority, but this is a priority for parents and kids all over this county. I note that this body unanimously passed my food allergy bill in 2019 to establish training and signage in all Nassau County restaurants. This is bipartisan, it's simple, it's logical, it's pragmatic, and we're asking for some action here. As you've heard today, the public can't wait, and I hope that we can pass this before the new year. Thank you.
I do have some questions for you. Who did you speak to at the Department of Health about this program?
Sure. So we've spoken to Commissioner Eisenstein's staff before he left, and we've called repeatedly, asked for meetings, and quite frankly, we've been very frustrated at the glacial pace at which this has moved forward. So I would welcome a meeting after this meeting. I'd go over to the Department of Health for a meeting here.
So you haven't gotten the approval of the Department of Health, which was administered this program, correct?
We're trying. We're desperately trying.
Do you know if the County Department of Health legally has the ability to provide epinephrine to a retail establishment?
Sure. So we'd love to speak to their lawyers if they would call us back.
Shouldn't you have determined before you proposed the bill whether it was legally possible?
Yes, our minority counsel believed that it was possible, therefore we sponsored the bill. I wouldn't sponsor a bill without counsels.
The Department of Health is not sure about that, actually. So they're not sure if this is legally permissible, and we're going to ask the county attorney whether the county even has the power to do this.
So it's just, and just for the record, it'd be a reimbursement, and I want to find out like you do, but I sponsored it in March, and so it shouldn't take March to November to find a simple answer.
So it's not the county providing epinephrine or EpiPens to restaurants? It's reimbursement?
It's a reimbursement program.
Okay. As mentioned, I'm being told that the legislation is not written that way, that the county actually provides the EpiPens. But according to the Department of Health, the bill would allow for the purchase of approximately 20 adult and 20 junior EpiPens. Since there are circumstances when an individual may require 2 doses, the program would reach approximately 10 restaurants. Is that your understanding?
Pilot program, I'd love to establish it, but I wanted to lowball to at least get something moving forward. Of course, we'd love to make it bigger.
So it would be 10 out of 4,000, correct?
Typically, a pilot program is 10 out of 4,100. It's to establish proof of concept. This happens in corporate America all the time.
So the restaurants that you spoke to, they want to do this?
They do. Actually, you'll see on News 12 at 5 p.m. I'm going to give a plug for your show. Coach Meeting House and so many restaurants want the EpiPens. They just can't afford them.
They cannot afford EpiPens.
So many restaurants, well, Plainview Diner down the street from Arnie closed last month. I mean, so many restaurants cannot afford the 500, and they don't want to take on the 500 every 18 months.
So we're looking at restaurants that are on the borderline of staying in business.
No, we're not. We're not necessarily doing that. Chris and Tony's is a thriving restaurant in Syosset that has opted in. They're doing great.
And they still can't afford an EpiPen.
Presiding officer, with due respect, who are you to judge the bottom line of a restaurant?
I'm not judging anybody. I'm just asking. I'm asking you questions.
So,
no. I have some questions for.
And I answer the question. I mean, I think it's outrageous to judge anybody's bottom line. COVID's taking a toll.
I'm not judging anybody. I'm just curious because if the county's going to engage in a program that's going to put these into restaurants, we'd like to know what kind of restaurants we're going to put them in. For example, some of the higher-end restaurants, you pay more than this for a single meal. So obviously, those restaurants could afford to put EpiPens in their restaurants, correct?
If this body wanted to put sales level cap, or if this body wanted to amend the bill, I'd welcome it. Getting it into any restaurant makes sense.
So would the restaurants who are participating in the pilot program, would they advertise the fact that they're in a pilot program?
That would be the hope. We have Coach Meeting House, for example, has gone on camera and said they'd be the poster child for this, and quite frankly, they hope to never have to use their EpiPen, but they'd love to work with us.
So the county would be advertised as a pilot program in these restaurants, correct?
Correct. And likewise, I'd like to share, this body passed my bill in 2019, where every restaurant in Nassau County now has a signed food allergy safety and posts all the major allergens and the county seal.
So we agreed with that. That was a good idea. So servers, maybe a manager, will be trained to administer the EpiPen.
No, as we know, and as you'll speak to any advocate in the audience, the EpiPen would not be administered by the waiter. It's for the parent or for the child or for a friend at the table. We're not asking waiters to become paramedics. It's simply if somebody leaves the house without their EpiPen, if God forbid they forget their EpiPen, which has happened to people literally in this audience, that an EpiPen would be on premises for them to use. I would not have the audacity to demand training for our restaurant employees.
I mean, that's not what your legislation says.
So let's amend it. So let's get a working group and amend it. I sponsored it in
Any
March.
participating restaurant shall designate a person or persons of the restaurant staff to receive and successfully complete training in conformity with state law to use the EpiPen.
One person on staff.
So there'll be one person on staff.
Who's the
What reassurance does a parent or resident have that goes into this restaurant that that person on staff is actually going to be working when their child or loved one is there?
They wouldn't need to. The point of having one person on premises is to identify a safe storage location for that EpiPen. And so long as we've been advised by council, so long as there is no gross negligence in where it is stored, that restaurant would not be liable. And quite frankly, if that's not sufficient for the health department lawyers or your lawyers, then let's go further and amend the bill. But we haven't gotten a single conversation on this since March.
So how does the county know who is responsible for properly storing, maintaining, and controlling the EpiPen?
That restaurant, well, this is, again, my idea for a pilot program, is that restaurant would identify their food safety officer. It would be on file with the Department of Health. Because it's a pilot program, it's a very manageable number, and that person would be responsible for that restaurant to store an EpiPen. Quite frankly, EpiPens don't need to be stored in crazy locations. They could just be behind the counter safely.
So that also goes to the county. The county is responsible for maintaining information about who's storing the EpiPens.
I mean, it would be a sheet of paper with 10 names. It's not an inordinate amount of work for the health department.
So what if the county fails to confirm that the EpiPen has not expired?
Well, so under my idea and my proposal, because these are good for 18 months, the county would have a system where after 18 months, a health department employee would replenish the EpiPen at that restaurant should they not have to be used. If they have to be used, my idea is the restaurant would file a report and then they would be given new EpiPens under the pilot program.
So this is for these 10 restaurants. So if the county fails to go out in the 18-month period and the EpiPen effectively expires and is used, tell me who's responsible.
I'd love to work with your lawyers and our lawyers to indemnify the county.
I understand that, but I'm just asking questions because this has been proposed. We want to consider it, but these questions have to be answered because the truth of the matter is that the person who administers the EpiPen is protected under state law, and the establishment is protected under state law. As Arnie will tell you, the first thing, if it goes wrong, God forbid, first thing the lawyer is going to look for is the deep pockets, and that's the county of Nassau with a $3 billion budget. So those issues, they're important. They have to be resolved. And look, I mean, we need to go to the Department of Health. We need to find out whether this can be worked out. We need to go to the county attorney's office, get an opinion, and those types of issues have to be worked through. I mean, if the administration, Department of Health, could do this and wants to do this, then we'll consider it. But before that, we're not going to.
We agree, but as a legislator, it's my job to take complaints from advocates in our community, bring them to the floor to a vote. March 30th, 2022, this bill was clocked in. Nobody from the administration wants to call me back. I am not going to give up. There's no quitting me. And so all these questions you've answered are great questions. We need answers, and I'm asking my Republican colleagues to join me in asking the administration to help us.
We're asking the questions, and now that you have the questions, you really, I mean, honestly, you know,
what good are the questions if they don't call us back?
Before you propose these legislation, you really need to do a little bit more homework. But
well,
that's another story.
How many bills in this body are sponsored, teed up, and then the questions are sorted out before full legislature? It happens every month. I've been here for 5 years. These are basic questions we believe we have the answers to. Your constituents in Republican districts, as Jen so eloquently put, also have food allergies. So the fact that nobody has urgency here is preposterous.
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt you, sorry. But I mean, the bottom line is, the first question I'd ask before I propose something is the county legally permitted to do it? So, I mean,
we were
that's
advised
the most fundamental.
We were advised. My Pete Klein's clocked this in. Our attorney would not clock in a piece of legislation he believed was not legal.
He believes. All right. So again, we're going to go to the county attorney's office.
Let's do it.
And find out from the county attorney what they have to say.
Let's do it.
And we're going to find out from the professionals, Department of Health, whether they believe this is something that the county should be involved in.
I'm just slightly familiar with this, and I think it's a good idea. But in the past, you've had to have a prescription to get a pen. So that's why the restaurants can't get them. if they just want one. So I don't know, that's another question maybe that we have to address to see how to give them out, because it's a medicine that you need a prescription for. So that has to be addressed also.
Okay, but I mean, what's confusing me is the legislation
If I could
has.
just speak to that one point,
The
because I've been
legislation
accurate,
has
I'm sorry.
the
There's a New York
legislation-
State law that permits restaurants to carry epinephrine. This is
Okay.
just about getting it to
Yeah,
them.
thank
It's
you.
already permissible.
Thank you.
It's
You
called non-patient specific epinephrine. It's referred to as the stock epi law. It's a New York State law. All restaurants in New York State are permitted.
They're permitted
And other
to-
establishments as well.
They're permitted to stock them, you saying, ma'am?
Yes.
Stock them.
It's called the stock epi law. I
Right.
can get you the number. I
Okay.
don't have it off my hand, but
All
it's
right.
called the stock epi law.
Are
Yes.
they permitted
It's
to
not just
obtain?
restaurants, it's parks, it's, I think, state parks, public places, all sorts of public places.
Can they buy them or just stock
I'm
them?
not sure if the
I think that's the
legislation-
concern, only because it's hard to buy them without a prescription, from what I understand.
It shouldn't be if it's permissible. I would have to get you the copy of that law. I'll get that to you, Delia. I don't know.
Sorry, I just wanted to also speak to that point. So the restaurants actually now who can afford actually do. There are a couple of restaurants I know they have epinephrine auto-injector. They buy themselves. However, as Joshua Lafazan has mentioned, many restaurants don't have the capability to afford epinephrine auto-injector. And I think it would be wise to have this go through, a pilot program, just so we can understand whether it actually works and whether it's, going to be helping our communities. And so I also wanted to mention, I know previous legislation talked about restaurant safety, and we had, I believe it said 2 individuals would be trained under that law on how to recognize and administer epinephrine auto-injector within restaurant setting. And I just want to mention, I'm also a Red Cross trainer, so I know with the American Heart Association and the Red Cross, there are modules for people who are CPR first aid trained. There's a module on recognizing anaphylaxis and administering epinephrine auto-injector. So anybody trained with that is able to actually administer epinephrine auto-injector, just like they would be administering CPR. And I also was going to say about storage, just like we have external defibrillators in every building, similar model would be ideal for epinephrine auto-injectors. So thank you.
Okay. I mean, it gives me a little bit of pause, basically, that what we're looking at is restaurants that can't afford to EpiPens. I mean, ideally, I don't know that this is the type of restaurant that we would want to be participating in this program. And secondly, what gives me pause is, if you have servers in restaurants, you may have a manager. They come, they go. Some places, family-owned businesses, they stay for a while, but there's a concern about the turnover. About the type of people that would be administering this. So there's a number of different concerns, and we will be following up. Obviously, Legislator Lafazan is going to be doing some things, and then we recommend you go to the administration, Department of Health, and see what they have to say.
We will. We thank you for your public commitment to helping us get these answers. We welcome you in this fight, and I look forward to reaching out to the administration once we adjourn today.
Okay. And back to public comment. Pearl Jacobs.
So, speaking regarding health and safety, I clean my mic. I clean it for myself and everyone that comes after me. And Legislator Lapison, I really support that legislation on EpiPen. My sign, Uniondale says no to a casino. Youth and casinos do not mix. There are strong suggestion that a casino is coming forth at Mitchell Field. Okay, it's proposed suggestions that a casino is proposed at Mitchell Field. I have here where October 26th this year, where it states, the 2 candidates for governor held Tuesday's debate several weeks after the New York State Gaming Commission appointed 3 members of the New York Gaming Facility Location Board. The board has until January 6th to issue a request for applications for interested casino applicants. Before a casino project's application is reviewed by the board, the applicant must demonstrate that it has received enough public support through a so-called community advisory committee, according to the facility board's process. Can you stop my clock, because I have a question for Legislator Bino?
No, you finish your comments. You can
Okay,
ask your
well, I will
questions and
continue
then
with my
respond.
comments,
Okay, thank
okay?
you.
We have here, in addition to all the reasons on my posters why we do not need a casino at Mitchell Field in Uniondale. Casinos encourage addiction. Casinos creates addictive behavior, resulting in compulsive gamblers. The majority of casinos' revenue comes from problem gamblers. Communities that are located within 10 miles of a casino exhibit double the rate of gambling. Casinos prey on the most vulnerable and elderly. Casinos have negative impacts on home values, and there's an average property value decrease of 15% for homes. Casinos do not revive local economies. Casinos do not support local businesses. Casino crimes increase in communities where casinos are located. The excessive serving of alcohol at casinos increase drunk driving and vehicles accidents. Hempstead Turnpike is known as the most dangerous roadway in Nassau County. A casino at this location will only increase danger on this roadway. And Uniondale's current infrastructure, north and south from the Southern State Parkway, cannot support the surge of traffic that a casino at Mitchell Field would generate, resulting in serious traffic safety issues. At certain times of the day, our first responders have difficulty even navigating through traffic on Uniondale Avenue currently. I have here where, dated October 2011, I have the Mitchell Field Form Zoning Agreement. I have also 2011, the local law regarding ordinances at Mitchell Field. And I don't have time to read that. But my question to you, Legislator Bino, is there any proposed casino at Mitchell Field? Do you know of any proposed casino to come at Mitchell Field?
I'm not aware.
You're not aware of that?
Correct.
Okay, so there is a committee, I'm hearing there's 3 casinos that's proposed for downstate, okay, and one of them is being strongly suggested at Mitchell Field.
That's a state process, not a county process.
Okay, well, I'm
not
hearing
aware.
there's application from the county to have that casino, advocate for that casino to be at Mitchell Field, and you haven't heard that?
Not aware.
And do you know if there's any community advisory board currently discussing this proposed casino at Mitchell Field?
Not aware.
You're not aware of that?
Correct.
Okay, so I just want to let you know and get in front of this, that Uniondale does not support a casino at Mitchell Field, and if we do hear that or if it does materialize, that there will be proposed development there, there will be strong resistance to it. Thank you.
Pearl, if you don't mind,
Yes, sir.
I appreciate you not focusing your comments towards me today. But
Well, you know,
But,
Kevon, listen, it's never personal.
no,
With me,
Pearl,
it's never
Pearl,
personal.
I'm laughing.
I know. I'm laughing too. I'm
It's a
laughing.
joke.
Yeah.
It's a joke.
Okay.
It's just a joke. It's a joke.
I know.
First and foremost, I wanted to just elaborate on some of your concerns. First and foremost, as you mentioned, the proposal of the casino does fall in the lines of the state. I've heard some of the same things that you have heard, that the state will consider applications, yes, for a downstate casino. That being said, that process is, I think it's further enhanced by the fact that policymakers are saying that it's going to be downstate and it won't be in Suffolk and it won't be here. So if it's not going to be in Suffolk and it's not going to be particularly in the New York City 5 boroughs, then what else is left? So common sense, I haven't heard anything directly about Mitchell Field, but common sense would tell me that it's going to be in Nassau. So it's not just your advocacy, it should be everyone's advocacy who does not want a casino. Now, for me, foremost, when a casino was being proposed at Fortunoff's up on Old Country Road, Westbury, I was heavily against it. My caucus, heavily against it. I believe the entire legislature was heavily against it, and it didn't happen. I would like to think that this entire legislative body would be against it again, even though the venue is changing. Nothing has changed. From my standpoint, I didn't think a casino was good for the Westbury area, and I supported Legislator Bino and Legislator Schaefer in that effort, and I don't think it's good for the Uniondale community. Whether it's at Mitchell, anywhere else, it's not good for the community. So from that standpoint, I think, though, just to refocus our efforts, I think we have to work collaboratively to make sure that the state is aware that there is opposition to this particular facility happening anywhere in Nassau County, but primarily because of your advocacy here today in Uniondale. And I would be happy to work with you if it's a letter campaign. I'm speaking on behalf of myself. I don't want to speak for all 19 members up here. But I would be happy to work with you in that.
Well, thank you, Legislative Abrahams. I appreciate your support. I have already voiced, Uniondale's position to our state representatives, so they are aware of that. Okay? And yes, in 2015, there was strong advocacy from Call Place residents, Westbury residents against the proposed casino.
Uniondale residents too? Uniondale residents were against it as well?
Yes, at the Fort North location. And I was, was involved in that as well at the time. But definitely not at Mitchell Field. We have, youth and casinos do not mix. We have Hofstra University, Kellenberg, Nassau Community College, the Uniondale Charter School, Museum Row. Okay, we do not need, we have a problem here in Nassau County with opioid addiction. Now, we don't need young people to become addicted to gambling. But thank you so much.
Okay.
Chris Jacobs? Covered it. Okay. Janine Maynard? He's here. Okay, sorry. I thought he was passing.
How you doing? Chris Jacobs. I'm here to talk about, every week I go shopping in the Roosevelt area for shopping, and basically one of the ways I take home traversing is Eastgate Boulevard, and in that whole area of Roosevelt Field, it's littered with, I have pictures right here, I think it falls right at the edge of District 2. Basically, you can see an end of day of shopping carts. It looks terrible. It's there right now. It's the N22 bus stop. And in fact, down the street by the Winthrop, at the corner of Zeckendorf and Winthrop, they made a bench out of shopping carts. And I always tell my grandma gets very offended by it. So I said, I promised my grandma I'll bring her to the legislator to say, hey, grandma, I'm going to show the legislators that it's just trashy. I mean, people come on the weekends, they come from out of town, they come to what we all use, which is Roosevelt shopping area. And it's something that should just go away instantaneously. I mean, it demeans all of us, everybody in here. That's not a good look for Nassau County. And I mean, that's not how we're supposed to present ourselves to the people outside, outer boroughs. So I would want to present this picture showing what it looks like now. It's that whole area. Basically, it's going all the way from Red Roof Inn, Lowe's. You see shopping carts lit all over that place. And for that to be the biggest shopping center in Nassau County, for it to look like that, that's not a good representation for any one of us to present to any outer borough or anybody in New York. That's all I got to say.
And I would like to add to that, it is disgusting that now they're using the shopping carts for trash. They're throwing trash in it. And you have Whole Foods there. It's a beautiful area. Langhorne, they have the carts sitting out there so people could sit waiting for a bus. And that's terrible in a beautiful area like that. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, presiding officer. If you don't mind. Thank you for making me aware. And Mr. Jacobs, if you could leave me the photo so that I can have the exact location.
And thank you once again.
Yes, we'll also notify code enforcement who would be responsible for that type of activity. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobs. Janine Maynard.
Good afternoon. I'm here to discuss ongoing problems with the definition of Uniondale. We continue to have problems about how our community name is being represented in the news. Last Tuesday, Nassau County put together a News 12 report on the hiring of 50 officers. And that officer is still posted, that officer report is still posted on News 12 with faulty information about the name of our community. So I'm going to play this for a moment.
Begin an intense 7-month training program to prepare them for their jobs. And County Executive Bruce Blakeman says he'll make sure that there is enough in the budget to include 36 new police officers for next year. In East Garden City, Antoinette Biordi, News 12, Long Island.
The problem with the East Garden City designation on this is that that name in Town of Hempstead was retired. It was retired by resolution. It took time for the maps to catch up. The maps caught up. Now we have a census-designated place map as of 2020, and there is no East Garden City. So our town government, our state government by resolution, and our federal government all say we have a unified Uniondale, and there is no East Garden City. So what is the problem in Nassau County? That these reports go forward with a faulty name when it's been changed. Is the long-term memory okay and the short-term memory is failing? We expect that when we make change as a community, that gets respected in Nassau County. We've been waiting, we've been correcting, we've talked to Newsday, we've talked to Channel 12. Now I want you to understand, when we won the resolution, we won because there had been a problem with the confused names of communities. And it cost our fire department, they misallocated $4.5 million. It went to a place that didn't exist and had to be corrected. Currently, our fire department continues to have difficulty with their communications because they're facing resistance about updating things. Now, you talk bravely about how much safety matters to you. Well, the safety of part of our community is stalled when our fire department has to go through a 2-stage emergency call process. We expect cooperation, and we expect to be defended for our safety. It is time for Nassau County to do what we have in writing, what we have in fact, and what we have in law.
Okay. Thank you. Lavanda Felder.
Hi, Laveda. I'm here again to talk about the same thing, eager to serve, and the actions, the representatives of Nassau County Department of Social Services. Since the previous legislative meeting, I've been saying to the scripture myself, never has the righteous been forsaken or my seed beg for bread. As you know, I'm a Hofstra University alumni, and I'm sure no one is interested in the production of a documentary from Hofstra to homeless. As you know, Eager to Serve has not been funded since April 2022. Fact, we continue to serve the homeless by soliciting donations, financial and tangible, as I have deleted my own savings. Fact, my mortgage is now in the pre-foreclosure stages as I have not been able to pay it since the illegitimate closing of the shelter and the non-payment of the restricted shelter payments. It says here, we have sent the prescribed New York pre-foreclosure notice. Fact, I turned my car in, but thank God the dealer said my credit would not be further affected. I recently applied for SNAP. The New York State Department of Social Services, the New York State Department of Labor denied my application for unemployment. I wanted to read their comment. No unemployment insurance benefits will be paid to you for the period beginning 9/12/2022 and until the reason for your inability no longer exists. You are ineligible for benefits under Section 522 and 591 of the Unemployment Insurance Law because you are not totally unemployed. You are not totally unemployed as of 9/12 because you perform services as on a full-time basis for Eager to Serve, a not-for-profit organization of which you are founder and administrator. Although there are recent issues with funding and you are not currently being paid, you continue to maintain a residence and provide services for the clients. One of the clients won their case, and the agency is directed to withdraw its May 11th determination with respect to appellate's public assistance, including temporary housing and medical assistance benefits. This is DSS when it says the agency. The agency is directed to continue to provide public assistance, including temporary housing assistance and medical assistance benefits to the appellate's household. The agency is directed to restore the appellate's public assistance, including temporary assistance
Laveda,
and medical assistance.
Please sum up. It's 3
Okay,
minutes.
DSS did not follow the state rules that the state told them to do.
Okay, all right.
Wait a minute.
Uh,
1 second.
3 minutes are up. Just if you could
Okay,
just sum
this
up
is
your
just-
point,
okay,
and we'll move on.
Okay, I'll sum it up.
Okay.
Please be advised, one of the clients won the hearing regarding the wrongful termination of their benefits. Please be advised, Nassau County
Ms. Felder.
DSS extended the 10.
Ms.
Okay.
Felder, reading from the documents is not helping us. So, I mean, so we thank you for coming tonight. And we have another speaker from Eager to Serve.
Okay.
Kayla Jackson.
I know, thank you, Presiding Officer. Pearl, I know, Jeanine, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize Mrs. Felder was still
I'm
speaking.
taking Kayla's place.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Can't do that. The rules prohibit that maneuver. So if Kayla wants to come up, she's more than welcome.
She's nervous to come up.
I know. I get nervous myself, but I'm sure
So
you'll be very good, Ms. Jackson.
I took her place last time, another person's place last time. It's only 3 minutes.
Well, the
And then
rules,
when you want to extend the conversation, you get to extend the conversation. So
Yeah, but
why
that's-
can't I extend the conversation? Because I'm tired of everybody breaking the rules, and I don't be trying to break the rules. But when y'all break the rules, you don't want nobody to hear.
well, that's the prerogative
But
of
I'm not
the
trying to
chair.
break the rules.
Okay, I hear you.
But what I wanted to say
Let me
was
just,
that the people at DSS did not follow the mandates from the state, and you're letting this go on. And in 2016.
okay, ma'am, that's, I mean, we can't go through the history. I mean, there's nothing this legislature can do with respect to the actions that the DSS has taken because of the loss of your nonprofit status. Without power to do that. We're happy to have you here
Because of the
anytime you
what?
want to come here. But
Wait, I'm not talking about the loss of the nonprofit status.
all right, well,
I'm
okay.
talking about that the illegal closing of the shelter is what I'm
All right,
talking
well, then
about.
we
Let's get it straight.
Either way-
I'm talking about the illegal closing of the shelter, and then I keep coming back here because no one is doing anything about it. But all I'm trying to mention is that when the people that work at DSS break the rules, they violate the law,
No one does anything about it.
Okay, all right.
And I just want you to know that DSS broke the law, so it can be on record that everybody knows that they got a mandate from the state and they didn't follow it.
All right, you made your point. We have your documents that you submitted. It'll be part of the record, and thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Okay. Mita Meriday?
Presiding Officer, just while Mrs. Meriday approaches the podium, I just wanted to, I feel bad that Mrs. Maynard and had left. I'm sure she had somewhere else to go, but I just want to mention it to Pearl because she has been an advocate for this issue as well. When she played the actual video, I just want to make sure everyone up here understands, and I'm going to take 2 seconds to explain this. When she played the actual video, it was a News 12 reporter indicating that they were live from East Garden City, which any reporter does whenever they're reporting from a particular town or city or wherever, village. I was thinking to myself, then, could that be an error made by the News 12 reporter, and what did the police department release actually indicate? So I went back, I took a look at the police department release, and this seems to be an issue that we keep having with the police department when they send out their media releases. But I'm looking at their release, and their release clearly states that where the press conference is going to be is One Law Enforcement Way, Fieldhouse Gym, on the grounds of Nassau Community College, Perimeter Road, Garden City. That is completely inaccurate. And this seems to be an issue that I keep having that comes up with the commissioner again. I'm not too sure why it keeps coming up. It came up before with a particular event that he had asked that we were hosting with him. I think every community wants their boundaries to be respected. It's not just from a tax standpoint, it's just respect. And this release went out on November 14th. So I'm going to ask, I know Legislator Bino and myself have continually asked, but I'm going to ask for everyone's support that when they see these releases, especially when it's reference to the new training facility, the training facility is in Uniondale. I think that's been determined. I wish Mr. Gibson was still here because he could actually show you on the map. The boundary is very clear. So I know it seems like an issue that not everybody wants to talk about, and I'm sure some of you may think that they're more important pressing issues that we're getting ready to vote on. But this is a very important issue that has occurred for multiple years. And as I said before, I know Antoinette Biordi, the reporter, and if she was still here, she was actually here covering the food allergy bill. I'm going to text her and let her know. But that being said, her report, it's not her fault why she reported at East Garden City. It's clearly here in the release.
Legislator Abrahams, in reference to Commissioner Ryder, now I've spoken with Commissioner Ryder about this, and he says, he says, Pearl, I have to put the address that they gave me, okay? He respects that it is Uniondale, okay? But he said he didn't make the address. They gave him the address of Garden City, and that's where the address that he is to use.
Who's they?
Well, I guess the county or whoever. Listen, Uniondale has 9 zip codes. Okay, so that's a whole issue right there into itself. 9 zip codes for a small area where you can pick a zip code. What do you want your area to be called? Westbury? Here's a zip code for that. Here's a zip code for Garden City. Here's a fictitious zip code for East Garden City. And it's not only News 12, News 12, it's Newsday, and it's consistently being done. It's like they suppress it and then they bring it. Now it's not even being called East Garden City. It's actually being called Garden City.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's Garden City. You're absolutely right about that. They're further encroaching on our identity, on our boundaries. Museum Row. Okay, we were supposed to, Legislator Bino?
She's listening.
Yes,
She's listening.
Legislator Bino, on this whole identity issue with Uniondale. We were still waiting for a meeting with the Postmaster General regarding the 9 zip codes that exist in Uniondale, okay, where you can pick a zip code and call the area what you want, okay? It's Uniondale. Museum Row is in Uniondale. They have the backdoor scenario where they use the back doors as their addresses so they can use a Garden City address instead of a Uniondale identity. So, all of these issues continue, and they continue. We have my Vice President, Heidi Sampt, who every time, she sees, misidentity is spoken by News 12 or Newsday, she sends an email back to the editor or back to the reporter, but it still does not resolve the issue. They still insist on identifying Uniondale as Garden City, East Garden City, or whatever they want to identify it as. We have the new development over there on West, they're calling it the developments that are coming up and jumping up over there. Everything is being identified as anything other than Uniondale. Okay, so we want our boundaries and our identity to be respected. And but thank you, Legislator Abrahams, for expounding on that.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. I'm actually, Pearl, I know you've spoken to the commissioner. I'm going to speak to him specifically about this particular release going out.
But, I don't know why you're pointing to the commissioner when everybody else does it. It's not only the commissioner. Everybody else does it. Because he's, this... But
I can't deal with everyone else at this moment because I got to wait for those incidents to happen. Like when you said it's Newsday or it's someone else, then we wait for each one to happen. And when Newsday has done it,
It happens all the time.
And it's something that is going to have to be addressed multiple times until it's actually ingrained. It's going to take multiple times to do it, but I do understand where you're coming from.
And Ms. Jacobs, I know you're still waiting for that meeting, and we also have some legislation that we have crafted. We'd like to speak, actually be able to share with you and review with you. So we'll follow up. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just one more question, Legislator Abrahams. So the commissioner, did he create his own address for the police academy, or was it given to him? I mean, this is the address he was told to use.
I'm not too sure.
This was the address he was told to use.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. The whole process in terms of how it's given to him, when any property is purchased or is utilized by the county, our real estate department determines what the address is. I mean, normally addresses are already there. I'm not too sure what he means by that. That's why I'm going to reach out to him.
I'm certain he didn't come up with this address. I'm just certain that he did not come up with his address as Garden City. This is the address that he was told to use, okay? He reports, he's a commissioner of police. He's not a county executive. He's not a legislator. He doesn't, create addresses. He just uses the address that he was given.
Yeah,
okay?
But he wasn't given that address. I got to think he wasn't given that address by anyone in this body.
Yeah, well,
he wasn't given that address by. I have to find out where he's.
We don't know where he received the address from, but I know he didn't. I can say for certain that he did not create the address as Garden City. He's not calling Garden City because he wants to call it Garden City. He's calling Garden City because he was told that it's Garden City address. One thing I can say about Commissioner Ryder, that he respects all communities, every last community. He shows Uniondale, and he treats us with the utmost of respect. And he's a man of integrity, so I knew he wouldn't come up with an address unless he was told. But thank you.
Mita J. Merida. Those might be Mr. Burse's. I think he was sitting there.
Okay.
So you guys will grab it later on. Just hang on to them. A pair of glasses on the chair.
Okay, Mita J. Merida. Okay, the reason I literally am walking in here with combat boots is because the last time I was here was for a session regarding redistricting, or as it should be called, gerrymandering 1, 2, and 3.0. It was a disgrace. It's an embarrassment with regard to how it compromises the whole integrity of a voting process. Not only that, a citizen's right to be able to vote in a fair and evenly distributed situation. So I appreciate the fact that the presiding officer said that residents were going to be provided with a map that legitimately outlines boundaries, streets, etc., when the last 2 to 3 months of meetings where our comments and considerations and concerns were on the record stated by the gentleman who developed the map for the Republican side, basically said he didn't take any of that into consideration. So I see that there's a meeting tonight with regard to redistricting. I'm not really sure what the format or platform of that will be. To date, residents who have been out in the cold and the rain in numerous locations have yet to see any true map that defines what their representation actually means, since we spent close to $1 million. I think residents would want an accounting for exactly where that money was spent and how we can possibly claw some of that back since our interests were not met. My other issue, since we're going into the end of the year, I support Legislator Lafazan's bill. I, too, have experienced anaphylactic shock early in life, not due to food allergies, even though I have food allergies. My issues are more related to medical practices and supplies. Being at about 7 years old and having surgery and the anesthesia that they used at the time, since that was the first time I had surgery, caused me to go into that type of environment. But fortunately, I was in a hospital and I had that addressed. I support that, but I do hope that you do have the meeting. Since residents can't get through, I'm not surprised that you're saying you can't get a call in to the county executive, since many residents like myself can't get a call through to set up a meeting with the county executive. Maybe you might have better luck, but I do support that. I also agree with no casino in Uniondale. You can't really put one in Baldwin. We have a preserve that needs to get some funding out of this Environmental Bond Act, and we only have a park at the other end. But if this redistricting bill goes through, we will be now designated into 3 legislative areas, and we're also into 3 town of Hempstead areas. I don't think that's fair representation. I don't think anybody would agree to that. Lastly, with regard to Grand Avenue, and I will sum up and I'll probably go past my 3 minutes, but not more so than anybody else that you have allocated that regard to. With regard to coming into 2023 and not seeing any of this funding coming from the settlement being directly involved with any support services much needed for our veterans, I am still requesting that this county develop some type of commission, body, council, family and friend package. I really don't care how you put it in place to address how we can better utilize the Nassau University Medical Center to provide a wider range of services for the thousands of veterans and their families that we have who this particular holiday will be impacted at a greater capacity than anyone else. And lastly, I see you have a resolution on here that's giving $14 million, I believe, in mortgage taxes and funding to the town of Hempstead. I'm just asking if there's any type of accounting practice that would submit my tax, my hard-earned dollars, to a municipality that continues to be investigated, albeit very minimally in Newsday with regard to their practices in misappropriation of funds and as well as their no-bidder competition processes for their contracts. I say it again. We do not have proper contracting and procurement outreach for service-disabled, minority, and women-owned businesses, and we have yet another settlement here, and I've asked before, what is the full amount of the settlements that Nassau County has paid out in 2022 for all related discriminatory practices? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mita. Now to the consent calendar. These are items that have passed through committees, and it's been agreed by the majority and minority that no further debate or discussion is needed at this time. Item 7, Ordinance 76, 8, Ordinance 77, 9, Ordinance 78, 10, Ordinance 79, 11, Ordinance 80, 12, Resolution 216, 13, Resolution 217, 14, Resolution 218, 15, Resolution 219, 16, Resolution 220, 18, Resolution 222, 19, Resolution 223, 20, Resolution 224, 21, Resolution 225. Motion by Deputy Presiding Officer Coppell, seconded by Minority Leader Abrahams. Any debate or discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Those opposed? All of those items carry unanimously. And we're going to Resolution 221, which is item 17. The resolution to confirm the county executive's appointment of Richard Corbett to the position of Commissioner of the Office of Emergency Management, moved by Legislator Ford, seconded by Legislator Walker. And that's before us. Mr. Corbett, first I want to apologize for the late hour, but sometimes the business takes a while.
I understand, sir.
Okay.
Just like emergencies, things happen.
Right.
First, before I begin, I would like to thank the County Executive Bruce Blakeman, the Nassau County Legislator, for giving me this amazing opportunity and allowing me to speak here today. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. Good afternoon, honorable members of the Nassau County Legislature. My name is Richard Corbett, and I'm hoping you will confirm me for the position of Commissioner of the Office of Emergency Management. I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself and my experiences to help you make your decision. I live in Lido Beach with my amazing wife, Connie, of 29 years. Today is actually our 29th wedding anniversary. I have 2 kids, Katie and Matthew, both 17, who are seniors at Long Beach High School. I'm one of 3 boys born to Irish immigrants who worked hard to provide a great life for us. I'm blessed to still have my mother and speak to her every day. My older brother is a supervisor at the Long Island Railroad, and my younger brother is a lieutenant with the Long Beach Police Department. I've been a first responder for over 36 years. I'm a former 2-time chief and commissioner of the Long Beach Fire Department. I was the incident commander for 2 federally declared disasters, Hurricane Irene and Superstorm Sandy. I led the preparation, response, and recovery for the months and years that followed Sandy. I helped develop all the new response and recovery procedures following these disasters. I was instrumental in standardizing our fleet of fire engines that were destroyed. I worked to have mutual aid fire departments assist us for the months following these storms, along with the Nassau County Fire Marshals. I work closely with our federal partners in securing resiliency funds to bolster our department to protect our residents and members for years to come. As commissioner, I was responsible for budgets, compliance, and staffing of our volunteer and paid forces. I served on the Nassau County Fire Commission as a secretary, vice chairman, and finally chairman of the 2nd Battalion, which represents 6 South Shore fire departments. I worked for the Long Beach Police Department for over 33 years as a supervisor in the Long Beach Traffic Division. I was responsible for all the crossing guards, parking enforcement officers, and summer special officers. I coordinated traffic control and special events, including races, parades, festivals, and fairs. I helped update our ticketing programs, fleet, and develop more efficient patrol posts. I attended numerous PTA and school board and civic meetings to keep the community updated on initiatives and to let the public have a face to speak to so I can bring their concerns back to my superiors. I'm sorry. I assisted in developing the City of Long Beach Office of Emergency Management. I assisted with the design, observed the construction from start to finish. I worked with the team to develop the first plans of all types of events, emergencies, and recoveries. I operated specifically out of the Emergency Operations Center during COVID and wrote all the plans for the continuing of operations during the pandemic. Additionally, in my younger days, I served as an ocean lifeguard for many years. As you can see, my entire life is all about serving the public, and with my I hope with my confirmation, I can continue to do so. I have taken numerous emergency management classes, trainings at the Nassau County Fire Service Academy, Nassau Community College, Texas A&M University, New York State DHSES, the National Disaster and Preparedness Center, and New Mexico Tech and FEMA. I was hired by County Executive Bruce Blakeman in January as Deputy Commissioner of OEM and jumped right in with both feet. My first day, I assisted with the distribution of over 3,000 COVID test kits. I was tasked with running the operations aspect of our office. I coordinated many lectures, trainings, and seminars with OEM, staff, and many civic and legislative groups. I built great relationships with other county offices, state, and federal agencies. As acting commissioner, I hold weekly meetings with all my division chiefs, bi-weekly staff meetings to make sure everyone has complete situational awareness of all activities and events. I've bolstered our training by having monthly tabletop exercises within our department. I'm in the process of designing a new state-of-the-art command vehicle which will mirror Suffolk County, so if there's ever an incident where something goes terribly wrong, we can jump into theirs, or vice versa, they can jump into ours without missing a beat. To save money, we are working to combine an older communications vehicle into a newer one that will be able to provide satellite communications and broadband internet access for over 800 people in case of another major disaster. I'm trying to update other equipment, including our light towers, generators, and message boards. I'm hoping to build up our finance section to gain additional grant opportunities for Nassau County to save taxpayer monies for infrastructure and emergency services. I'm proud to say that of the 63 counties in New York State, we are one of only 15 that is certified in emergency management. This means that all of our plans have been reviewed by our peers in the New York State DHSES and approved by FEMA. This allows federal resources to be pre-deployed if we are ever going to experience a natural disaster or storm to designated staging areas since they have already been predetermined. Our density population is the 6th highest in New York State and 28th in the United States. Some other ideas I have is to recruit people who have interested in being first responders who might not want to be boots on the ground, but have a passion to protect. More outreach to the vulnerable population, English as a second language population, and lower income populations who might not have access to information or resources to prepare for emergencies. I'll strive for better communications between our office, county government, and more training within the county departments. I'll provide weekly updates to the county executive's office detailing OEM's progress or deficiencies, and to be sure NASA keeps its accreditation. Thank you for allowing me the time to tell you about my family, experiences, and future for this department. I will gladly answer any questions.
Well, Richie, I have to say, I know you personally, but after listening to all of that you've accomplished and the training that you've had, I'm overly impressed. I really am. I just, you know, you were always there for all of us, okay? You were always present, and I'll talk about that, you know, because I remember, like, helping to direct traffic, helping with our school crossings, you know, very important, working with our parades, everything that happened in the city. You were always that person that would always be there. And once we saw you, you were directing, you were coordinating, and everything went smoothly. And I think that, you know, for me, especially after Sandy, you know, we were devastated. The whole island was completely underwater. People had no place to go. We didn't know what we were doing, you know. But I think that what helped us through those dark days and those bad days was that if we had somebody that we could look up to and know that we would be taken care of, and you'd help guide us out of it. And you were that person, along with, we did mention Commissioner Tagney. We have very, very wonderful, talented people that helped us through Superstorm Sandy. But, you know, I have to say, one of my best memories of you is always when we have the polar bear plunge, okay, on a day called Super Bowl Sunday, but we know it as a polar bear day. But, you know, helping to coordinate the thousands of people that go into the water, and then, of course, when they get out of the water and they're freezing, they're trying to get out off the beach, whatever, you know, you have deployed the people and you've helped people to be able to get, and we always, like, knock on wood, we always had a good time and everything. So I have to say, Richie, really, I'm just so thrilled that you're willing to want to take on this position, to want to work for the county and help us through this with this very important Office of Emergency Management, because it is a very, very important department in the county and within New York State. So it's a big responsibility, but I know that you're going to be able to handle it. And, you know, happy anniversary. But like because I know your brothers as well, I know your family, and I know that when I met your mother, I said to her, be very proud, because she raised 3 wonderful boys, and I'm sure that today she probably is over the moon with this position that you're going to take as a Commissioner of Office of Emergency Management. You well deserve it, and we most deservedly deserve you. Thank you.
Thank you. She's actually one of the first phone calls I have to make when I leave here.
You better.
It's, one of the things, like you mentioned, a lot of things that I was involved in. I'm a good coordinator, but being in my position, I just happen to be the face. But I'm nothing without the staff that stands behind me, and when you trust your staff, there's nothing that you can't accomplish. So that's how I live my life, and I love doing what I do.
And you were able to, like, with everybody in Long Beach, whether or not it's our firemen, the police, just regular residents, everybody had a lot of confidence in you, and yes, you delegated very well. You were able to share, coordinate, and I think that, you know, and I know for a fact that the residents in Long Beach and on the Barrier Island are very proud today that you will be our next commissioner, because everybody, I can't tell you how many people have thanked me to say thank you for supporting Richie, because this is a good day for all of us. I truly believe this in my heart of hearts, and I thank you for all of those who will vote for his position. Thank you.
Thank you.
Acting Commissioner, and I hope soon I'm going to say Commissioner. It's certainly been a pleasure to work with you. I don't know you as well as Denise does, but it's just been amazing. And as you stated before, you know, you're the face, but all the workers behind you. But I could tell you the morale that you have brought to this department has changed so drastically since you have been the acting commissioner. And I can't thank you enough for that, because we count on all of them on a daily basis. What you have done with the fire marshal's office, the fire departments, and, you know, you have taken everything up, not just up a level, but up many, many notches. And it's so much easier to work with everybody when everybody is on the same page, working together. everything that you've done over this short time as acting commissioner is totally amazing. And when you rattled them off, I'm like, oh my God, how do you do all those things? And I was thinking maybe you need to talk to them in corrections and see how you can help them too, because they were really struggling.
Next.
But I just want to thank you so much and look forward to working with you. Actually, OEM happens to be within my district. Hopefully it will remain in that, depending on what the redistricting does. But I look forward to continuing to working with you and with all the other agencies that you work with through OEM. So thank you, and hope to be saying congratulations very shortly.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. I got to give a lot of that credit to my mom for the way she raised me, so thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Legislator Bino, then Legislator Drucker.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Well, good afternoon or good evening, Acting Commissioner. I dubbed your department, OEM, the little engine that could. You're small and mighty, but you guys always rise to the occasion, and I'm very, very supportive of all that you guys do over at OEM, and I'm very excited to hear your background. I had a glimpse of it, but wow, it really is varied but consistent in public service to our greater Nassau County community. So I'm in support, and I wish you well in that department, and I'm a very big fan of some of those assembled in the audience. As you would already know, aside from what these folks do on a daily basis, they have not thought it robbery but to engage the young people in my community and show up for all the events, and they've piqued the interest of two young people who have gone off to who aspire to be in the office of to support government in the emergency management field. So thank you for all that you do. Your department is vital to this county, and God bless you.
Thank you for always supporting our department, ma'am.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Mr. Corbett, your background and your experience is really very, very impressive, and I couldn't think of someone who would be more qualified for the position than you. So you have my support as well. One thing I would say is that nothing is more comforting to the 19 of us than to be able to get a hold of the Commissioner of OEM at a moment's notice, because unfortunately, tragically, we only have to really communicate with you when something bad's going on. But I hope that you'll carry on the tradition and the history of your department by giving us numbers that we can reach you at certain situations, because that was very comforting to us, and it plays a big role in how we are being responsive to our constituents.
I always tell people that if I do get this job and when the time does come for me to leave, I hope people say what I would like people to say about me is, he reminded me of Craig Kraft, or maybe a little bit better. That's the standard I hold myself to. So, but if this does go through and I get new business cards, I'll be glad to give them to everybody.
Any other legislators? Okay, thank you, Mr. Corbett.
Thank you, sir.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Carries unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. Corbett.
Congratulations, Commissioner.
I'm going to call items 1 and 2 together. There's both hearings. Ordinance 74, Ordinance 75. These are ordinances to adopt the capital budget for the County of Nassau for the first year of the 4-year capital plan to commence on January 1st, 2022, pursuant to the provisions of Section 310 of the County Government Law of Nassau County. Legislator, Deputy Presiding Officer Coppell makes the motion. Minority Leader seconds the motion to open the hearing. So the hearing on the capital plan is now open. Any legislators? Any public comment on the capital plan? Hearing none, I'm going to need a motion to close the hearing. well, yeah, we will, I'm not going to be closing the hearing. I'm going to put the hearing in recess, and then I'm going to put the legislative meeting in recess. So we're done for today. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Everybody have a happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Motion to,
No.